Welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by Super Draft. I'm Dave Lochran. With me, Adam Scher, and we've got ourselves a 7-gamer to break down today. NBA, DFS, Deeper Dive. Happy to have everyone with us as always. Adam, how you feeling, brother?
Doing good. Pretty big NBA slate tonight, so pretty excited for it. Pretty big in terms of contests offered.
You sure you're feeling okay?
Yeah, I mean, I've been sick for like the last 3 years, but I'm good now.
Just to throw this out there, we had 2 comments today that made me laugh quite a bit. One of them was, Laffy vapes and picks his nose on air. It's disgusting, but it's what we have to work with. First of all, I haven't vaped in, a year? When's the last time you seen me vape on a stream?
I don't really pay attention to you on the streams, but I know it's been a
while.
You
would hear it.
Yes, I know it's been a while.
Been quite a while. Listen, dude, during podcasts without video with Stratford 6 years ago, you'd hear a lighter flick halfway through it. So I've been moving up in this world for sure. And as far as the picking goes, if you got an itch, you got to scratch it, man. I don't know what to tell you. Another one was, you guys are amazing. Keep up the good work. But is Adam okay health-wise? He's been he's been sniffling from day one. How can someone be so sick for so long? I'm concerned.
Got allergies, man.
Oh man. So you're good, right?
Yeah, I'm very good. I don't even really notice it because it's just allergies and I have them, and it doesn't really matter what season it is because if it's spring, I have them. If it's fall, I have them. So
Lindell 98, a man after my own heart, says, scratch away, Laffy. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. And thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's been a while, man. It's been a long time. Eric Johnson. No, I don't believe it's cocaine, but yeah. No, I would know. Plus, you'd be a lot skinnier.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I swear to God, I didn't mean it like that. No. I just meant you would look like, a cokehead. Assuming it was an everyday thing for 3 years. I know how those things work. You wouldn't look healthy, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, let's keep it moving. 7 games. Question, as always, to kick it off. Initial thoughts here. Yesterday was a lot of stars and scrubs, and that was during the show. After the show, we find out that Elfrid Payton was out, and then Dennis Smith Jr. just made it even more of a stars and scrubs night. How about tonight?
I mean, it's a little bit different tonight. I think you still have guys at the top that look really good, like Giannis, LeBron, and Davis, but the mid-range is pretty strong. Not a ton of value at the bottom, at least, not yet. We are still waiting on pretty big news out of Golden State with Marquise Chris and Draymond Green that could open some stuff up. But I think that, there's only one player on DraftKings even above 10,700. So it's not like you're having a true stars and scrubs slate anyway. But I think that there's a lot of really good mid-range options because you have guys like Damian Lillard and Kemba Walker sidelined. You have, some other injury situations as well.
All right, let's jump into it. Before we do, I want to tell you about our sponsor of the Deeper Dive, superdraft.io, or download it in the App Store. That's superdraft.io. Or download it. Just search Superdraft in the App Store. They've got the 22.5K jump shot today, 4,500 up top, the first place. The 10K long drive, 2,000 the first, coming up on Thursday. That's some NBA PGA action, and no salaries here. It's different than you've seen anywhere else. It's all based on the multiplier. So what does that mean? I'm happy to tell you. Instead of Giannis Antetokounmpo being 11,500 as he would be on DraftKings, what happens is you get him at a 1x multiplier. So he only gets the fantasy points that he scores. Whereas with somebody like Anthony Davis, he's 1.05. Drop it down a little bit further. Will Barton, 1.5. Same with Gallinari, 1.55. So if he scores 40, he gets 1.55 times 40 fantasy points. So that's how you construct your lineups. It makes it very simple to do, and it's a lot of fun. So if you wanted to play Giannis, LeBron, Anthony Davis all in the same lineup tonight, you could do that. No salary, no issue. But that's not necessarily the way to go, which is why the strategy becomes a lot more apparent and a lot more fun. But here's the best part. If you sign up using the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, you'll get $20 in free super cash to use on the site to play and win real money, just like cash, by depositing $100 or more and signing up using the promo code Awesemo. Remember, go to superdraft.io. Download it in the App Store. Check it out today. $4,500 up top to first place in the 22.5K jump shot over there tonight. Hopefully one of you guys takes it down and can brag about it tomorrow. All right. Let's get into it. Indy, Charlotte. We've got the Pacers here, 10.5-point favorites. This seems like a game that they should be able to pull away with quite easily, but Pacers have been a strange team. They went on a 6-game losing streak prior to the break before beating up on the Bucks heading into the break. 209 over under, and this one is the lowest on the slate by a wide margin. And we're still waiting on a little bit of injury news, but one we did get, I believe, yesterday, Adam, is Jeremy Lamb with that ACL is done. ACL or Achilles, either way, done for the year. Victor Oladipo remains questionable, though. So if Depot is out along with Lamb, how are you projecting this backcourt, including guys like TJ McConnell?
Yeah, I mean, if Depot and Lamb, Lamb obviously is out. If Oladipo is also out, then I think you're looking at 30-plus minutes again from Aaron Holiday, who should get a bump just with Lamb being out. But then if Oladipo's gone too, I expect you get 30-plus from him. You would get probably a little bit more run for McConnell and then more run for Justin Holiday as well. But I think the primary beneficiary would be Aaron Holiday.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Do you think Oladipo plays?
I have him in right now. I don't have a really good feel one way or the other. It is back spasm, so it's not like it's a long-term injury. It's not like it's a lower body injury or the injury that he was returning from. He practiced in a limited fashion yesterday. They said he was feeling a little bit better. I assume it is just going to depend on how he feels going through warmups.
Okay. Charlotte plays at the slowest pace in the league. We know that. It's a team that defensively has been dismal. There's no doubt about that. And they haven't been much better of late. They're bottom 5 in the league. They play at the slowest pace, dead last. How are we approaching guys like Sabonis, who has been extremely potent this season from a fantasy angle? But you're seeing that price come up, and actually it's come down. It's at 9,000 now, but he's still, it's still a rich price point. $8,300 on FanDuel, a little bit different, but then you start comparing him with a few other guys that we'll get to shortly. Is there anyone on this Pacers team today? We can throw Miles Turner into the bunch as well at $5,000 on DraftKings that you're considering.
Well, I think the pricing is really different between sites for one. You mentioned Sabonis being cheaper on FanDuel, but everybody except Miles Turner is. Oladipo in particular is like 4,800 on FanDuel. So if he plays, whereas I wouldn't be interested at all on DraftKings, I'd have interest on FanDuel at 4,800. Sabonis, I think, it's basically a prototypical tournament play. Like, he has a really high ceiling. It's a Charlotte front court that is really weak defensively, and Sabonis should have a lot of success. The problem is just that Charlotte plays at such a crawling pace that it takes possessions and value away from everyone that plays against them. And it's not like Indiana is a really fast team either. This game only has a 210 total. So while I do think that Sabonis is going to have a good game, I think it's still hard to prioritize him over some other options in faster paced games that we'll get to. Turner, I think, on DraftKings at 5K is a reasonable option because, for one, he is cheap. For two, I think that Lamb being out and then potentially Oladipo being out does have a little bit of a trickle-down effect that should help secure Turner's minutes, because you're going to get more minutes at the 4 for Sabonis, more minutes at the 3 for TJ Warren, and as a result, it should make it easier for Miles Turner to play north of 30 minutes. So I think that he looks like probably the most appealing option to me on DraftKings at 5K.
Okay. On the other side, you've got Charlotte. It's a tough spot against Indy. They have a 99.3 implied total. Them and the Pistons down in the dumpster today at the bottom of it. I mean, the one argument that you could be making, and I'll toss this over to you, is you're seeing some pretty big discounts in salaries now. Terry Rozier is down to $5,600 on DraftKings. He's looked, really underwhelming recently. Malik Monk, 4,900. He's actually been playing pretty decent basketball. Prices creeping up a little bit. And then you're talking about guys like Miles Bridges and Cody Zeller and PJ Washington. I mean, how much can you really work with here in Charlotte?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's a slow-paced game. It's a quality Indiana defense. It's a lot of not very good players on Charlotte. You do have decent pricing when you consider ceilings for guys like Terry Rozier, Cody Zeller at only 4,500, even Devontae Graham at 6,700. But we've seen Graham take a huge step backwards after his hot start to the season. Terry Rozier is, around a 0.85 DraftKings point per minute guy. So nothing that looks really that appealing to me here is anything more than just lineup filler if you're playing a ton of lineups.
Do you have anything else from this game?
No, I think it's one of the least appealing games on the slate.
Okay, I would agree. Toronto, Milwaukee. This is a bit of a more interesting one because this should be a battle. 1.5 point Bucks are 1.5 point favorites on the road, 231 total. Bucks coming off of a hard fought win against the Wizards yesterday. Now they're playing their second of a back to back. Giannis was limited though, fouled out prior to overtime, played 25 minutes. So what you saw was guys like Chris Middleton coming in and playing 40 and almost 41 minutes in that game. Eric Bledsoe played 33. What are you thinking? Or we'll start with Toronto as a matter of fact, because some of the prices are pretty wild. Like Serge Ibaka on DraftKings is 6,500. I like a big man that's willing to shoot threes against Milwaukee, knowing that that's where one of their few weaknesses are. They play at the fastest pace in the league. Fred VanVleet looking to get some ownership, 6,800. All of these, not all of them, most of them are at least reasonably priced, specifically Ibaka and Fred VanVleet. What are we doing here in Toronto?
I think that they look like one of the more underpriced teams on DraftKings just across the board. You know that Nick Nurse likes to give a lot of run to his starters. You know that this should be a competitive game, only a 1-point spread. Milwaukee's the fastest team in the league, so it's a nice pace-up spot for Toronto, and it's two of the best teams in the East. So should be a game where you potentially get even a little bit more run for the normal guys. And the Raptors are basically priced for the fact that Milwaukee is the best defense in the league, but they're underpriced if you consider that they're the fastest team by a wide margin and you're going to get more possessions. So efficiency isn't that big of the drop off in efficiency isn't that big of a deal. So you mentioned Ibaka. He looks like the top guy to me from Toronto as well. I expect him to play around 33 minutes here. That's about what he's averaged in games without Ibaka or without Marc Gasol this year. Over those games, he has a 24% usage rate, about a 16% rebounding percentage. He's averaged right around 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. So I think he looks like a solid option at only 6,500. Then you have $6,800 for Fred VanVleet, who I expect to play, around 38 minutes, assuming this game's competitive. Pascal Siakam should play 37 or 38 minutes as well. And he's obviously more expensive, but I still think he's a little bit underpriced. Like I would rather roster Siakam than Domantas Sabonis for 500 more on DraftKings. So I think those three look the best to me. Lowry looks more like a neutral option. He takes a hit when Siakam and VanVleet are both healthy. So I think he might be a little bit overpriced, but the other three, Siakam, Ibaka, and VanVleet, all look like pretty solid options.
Victor Oladipo is ruled out.
Okay, so yeah, more minutes for Aaron Holiday. I think the biggest takeaway there.
All right. What are you giving McConnell?
Mostly backup point minutes.
Okay.
I mean, he didn't play a single minute in the second half against Toronto.
Yeah, it's strange.
And we just haven't seen him play a lot alongside Brogdon this year. So I think that did we get an update on Sumner?
Not yet. You know what? I think it just came in. Too. We just got it now. He is out as well.
So I think you get more minutes for McConnell because it seems like you kind of would have to. But I think that Justin Holiday probably benefits. I think TJ Warren plays like 36 minutes. McDermott probably picks up more minutes, getting to like 20.
Okay. Yeah, and from a usage perspective, I mean, it matters, but Oladipo didn't come in and just start ripping off 30 shots per game. So
yeah,
you could look back at you really can't. I mean, just take what you know from earlier this season and the several months before Oladipo played and try and apply that to it. I think I'm giving McConnell 20 minutes. I think that's pretty reasonable. I'm assuming you're only giving him like 16 then?
No, I was going to say 20 seems reasonable because if you assume that Brogdon's going to play 32 or 33, it's not giving him a ton of minutes next to Brogdon. But also the thing I was going to point out was that on DraftKings where McConnell's 3,200 and Aaron Holiday is 4,600. Even though I feel a lot more confident in Holiday's minutes, I think that there's probably a little bit more potential for McConnell to be the one that breaks the slate when you consider he's basically minimum priced.
Yep, pretty much. And you know what? He's been pretty productive this year when given extended opportunities. Not to mention, if this game does get out of hand, which is very possible, very, very possible against this Charlotte team, TJ McConnell could be one of these guys that ends up soaking up a little bit of additional minutes. He's a +1 per minute guy on the season. So it's not the craziest idea if you're looking to go all the way down into the basement of pricing here. Let's get back to this Toronto-Milwaukee game. Anyone else from Toronto?
You can use OG Anunoby as just a value filler. I think that there's better value on the slate, but I do expect him to play big minutes against a Milwaukee team that has plenty of wings for him to defend, especially if Patrick McCaw, who's questionable, misses this game.
What are we doing with Milwaukee? Like I said, the back-to-back, it's whatever, especially given that Giannis didn't really play much yesterday. It is the second of a back-to-back on the road. It is against a very good Toronto team, and it is coming off of not only a game yesterday on the road, but also an overtime game that was competitive throughout even that entire overtime period. That took a lot to get that win, winning by 3 points against the Washington Wizards. Sometimes there's parity in basketball, rarely, but it happens.
They were blowing them out through 3 quarters too.
I know. It's pretty incredible.
Bradley Beal just taking over and then not doing quite enough to win.
Been spectacular though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough to score 50 plus in a loss. I'll tell you that.
Back-to-back games, and they lost both of them.
Amazing. I wonder if that's ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I saw he was the first player since Kobe to score, I think it was 50 plus in like maybe it was back-to-back losses, or I don't know. There was some stat where he was the first one since Kobe.
It's crazy. Says a lot about that team as a whole, doesn't it? Anyway, what are you? I think I'm probably lower on Milwaukee than most today, and it could be a mistake. It's the second highest total. Again, should be competitive. 1.5 point spread. What are you doing?
I'm rostering a lot of Giannis again. He obviously was really disappointing last night, but Josh and I talked about it a lot this morning, just how good he is from a fantasy standpoint. He played 24, 25 minutes last night, still gave you 42 DraftKings points. He averages north of 1.8 DraftKings points per minute for the season. Just pretty much a cheat code on a per minute basis. And he does so much in terms of scoring and rebounding and assists and even defensive stats to where it gives him a really, really high floor. So there's of course going to be games where he's in foul trouble or there's a massive blowout or stuff like that. But he's just the best fantasy producer there is. And you don't even have on this particular slate, it's not even like you have, a James Harden without Westbrook playing 6 minutes more than Giannis or something like that. We've seen Milwaukee be more aggressive with his minutes lately. Obviously had foul trouble last game. He fouled out. The game before that played 29 minutes in a blowout. Prior to that, he'd played at least 31 minutes in 8 straight. So you're really not seeing them be as cautious with his playing time as they were earlier in the season either. And then this is a game that should be competitive down to the end. So getting to a ton of Giannis, easily the highest projected guy on the slate for me. Okay. And then the rest of it, though, not really that appealing because you still have Middleton and Bledsoe at somewhat elevated price tags because of their prices being jacked up from Giannis missing a couple of games before the All-Star break. Brook Lopez is back or probable, so that takes the Robin Lopez value away. A 3K George Hill.
33 minutes yesterday.
For Lopez?
Yeah.
Yeah. Including overtime, but yeah.
Yeah, 1 rebound.
Pretty impressive against the Wizards too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, you have a 3K George Hill, but I still don't really think he's necessary on this slate. So it's pretty much Giannis and moving on as far as guys that I'm getting with any sort of frequency.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I don't really have any interest in anyone outside of Giannis. I don't like the matchup for him, but like you said, I've said this a lot when it comes to him. Like if I'm projecting a game to be close, and the Bucks are playing, I'm probably going to like Giannis. It's really that simple because regardless of matchup, if you give me 34, 35 minutes for this guy, it's pretty much unparalleled with the rest of the league. Actually it is. So that's enough right there to put him over the top, but I just don't see myself getting to Middleton or Bledsoe. And now that Robin Lopez isn't an option, Giannis is the only one here. So I actually have more collective interest in Toronto, but I think the best player from the game is Giannis.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at.
How about Chicago and OKC? This Bulls team just continues to be decimated by injuries. Wendell Carter Jr. can't get back. He's been out for some time now. Luke Cornett remains out with that ankle. Chandler Hutchinson, Otto Porter, Laurie Markkinen, Chris Dunn, Denzel Valentin. Man, they've been hammered by injuries. They're 6.5 points. Sorry, I think it's 7 now. 7.5. Opened at 6. 7.5 point dogs, 219.5 total. One of the lower totals on the slate for the Bulls. I want to start with Coby White for a minute, because what we've seen from him recently has actually been very impressive. And he's played 34 minutes in back-to-back games. He's played 34 plus in 3 of his last 4, and he hasn't played less than 30 in each of his last 4 games. So usage over his last 7 is 25%. It's second only to Zach LaVine. And that's no surprise, because they don't have any other reliable scoring options. Daniel Gafford, Thaddeus Young, Arcidiacono, Satoransky, the options aren't there. Regardless of whether they want them to be, they're not there. You can't turn Thad Young into someone that's going to drive to the rack 16 times a game. So it's left Coby White with a lot more responsibility. And as a matter of fact, over that span, 7 games, Adam, not only does he have a 25% usage rate, and don't worry, we'll get to how shitty the matchup is, but I want to lay this out. He's averaging over 7 potential assists and almost 7 rebound chances per game. For a guy that's been very dependent on scoring, you're actually seeing some peripheral production from him, whether that's the result of him getting more minutes or just being more involved. He has been a lot more productive through and through.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really resulted in peripherals, though. Like 2, and 3 assists over his last 3, 6, 3, and 0 rebounds. And part of that is probably that there's nobody really to convert those potential assists either. But I think that it's still a scoring dependent player that's getting a lot of minutes. I think it's worth pointing out that over the last 2 games where he's had these monster games, he's 22 for 40 from the field. He's 12 for 21 from 3, or 12 for 22 from 3. So obviously shooting really, really well. And he does have one game recently where he had a good game despite shooting poorly, but that was a game where we saw unusually high amount of peripherals with 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and 4 steals. So on one hand, it is a reasonably cheap player that's going to get a lot of opportunities to score and isn't afraid to shoot the ball. The problem is that the salary is starting to rise. It's not a good matchup, and you're paying kind of for how well he's shot over the last couple of games. So, I don't think that White stands out as a top play. I think that there's a lot of guys on the slate priced right in that range, whether it's Dennis Schroeder on the other side of this game, Will Barton in the Denver game that we'll get to, that all project really similarly to me. So, he still has upside at this price point to be used in tournaments, but it's not someone that I think is a core play. I do think he looks like my top guy from Chicago, with the exception of Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in anyone other than those two. And hey, look, over the last 7 where he started to see more minutes, 4.5 assists, almost 4 rebounds per game. For Coby White, that's at least decent. You need him to keep shooting, though. You need him to get up a lot of shots. And if that's the case, you might fall into another solid game from him. He's got 33 real points in back-to-back performances. But what can you do with the rest of Chicago against an OKC team that has actually made life pretty difficult for opponents from a fantasy standpoint, at least?
From OKC, I think that the pricing on Danilo Gallinari is a little cheap. We talk about it a lot whenever his price tag is down, that he's not a particularly volatile player, which when he's highly owned in tournaments makes him someone that you can fade relatively comfortably, because
he's projected for the 2nd most ownership on DraftKings right now, and like 8th most on FanDuel.
Right. And when that's the case, I normally end up under the field just because he's a good point per dollar play, but it's few and far between when he puts up a score, especially on a relatively big slate that you have to win tournaments. So, I think he looks like the top option from OKC in terms of projection, but I'll be aware of ownership there.
Let me jump in on him real quick, and then you can cover the rest of the team. He scored 40 fantasy points in 16% of his starts this year. You know how many games he has 50 or more?
0.
So to essentially drive home what you just said, how often are you going to roster Gallinari as chalk? right now projected for a lot of ownership. And granted, small forward position's ugly. I'm well aware it's bad. But how often are you going to roster Gallon or fade Gallinari and kick yourself afterwards because he's the reason you didn't win a tournament?
Right. It's more so that the flip side of this is he does give you a high floor and he does project better than most guys around him in terms of salary.
Right.
So,
which is why he's getting so much ownership.
Right. And it's, I guess, a good time to point out, like, you and I talk about it a lot, but whenever you see people talking about ownership, I think too often it's in the context of like, this guy is popular, this guy is chalk, who's the chalk, I need to fade the chalk. Like, it's your entire lineup is what matters. So there's probably going to be some other chalk plays that have similarly priced guys that maybe look better than the pivots that you would have off of Gallinari. So it's not that I think you have to just be under Gallinari because he's popular. I think he's popular for a reason. I think he's a good play. And if your lineup is already contrarian and you need someone in that price range, by all means, play Gallinari.
Okay. Yeah, just like you said, reasonable enough floor. The range of outcomes with Gallinari is, to say the least, small. So what about Schroeder and SGA and Chris Paul and the like?
Yeah, all pretty much secondary guys for me here. Steven Adams, on one hand, I think should be able to have success against the Chicago front court. They've been, even over the last month, they've been pretty decent at limiting rebounds, but they haven't been as effective specifically at limiting offensive rebounds. And that is obviously a big deal for Steven Adams. We've seen his playing time come up as well. So, I think it's an okay spot for him. I think you also, on the flip side of that, could look to a $3,300 Nerlens Noel. There's a handful of $3,200 and $3,300 centers today that all project for 18 to 20 DraftKings points, but they're all one foul trouble, injury, blowout, whatever, away from getting a few extra minutes and being a really, really good option. And I think Noel's one of those guys.
Okay. Rob Hood. No, that's not. I just researched it today while writing an article. So that type of stuff, he asked if one of our stats was part of our stats package. No, but it's whenever Adam and I write articles, that type of stuff is always going to be in there. We try and, I hate to say dive deep, but in terms of statistical analysis, we definitely try to get as much as we possibly can. You want to keep it going here, or anything else for this one you want to talk about?
No, I think that's one of the least appealing games on the slate.
Deeper Dive, by the way, is the promo code to get 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. One word, Deeper Dive, will get you the ownership projections, the player projections, all of our tools that are developed and used by Alex Baker himself, also known as Awesemo, the number one ranked DFS player in the world. All of our premium articles, the deep dive, and so much more, along with the lineup builder, the Data Central, which has all of the stats you need to research each day, Fantasy Cruncher add-on, you name it, all of that at awesemo.com. If you go to awesemo.com/join, you'll be able to see all of the packages if you're interested in spending less or more and getting yourself a year or a month. But if you want to check it out for a week and see what we're working with, I think you'll like it. But use the promo code Deeper Dive. It's all one word. It'll get you 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus subscription. All right. Denver and Detroit. I don't know about you, but this should be a bloodbath. Yeah. 13-point spread, 214 total. But at the same time, and I want to start with Jokic. I'm sure we'll get into Barton a little bit. We can talk about a few of these guys, but how much does Denver as a team really interest you?
Not a ton, because Detroit has been the slowest team in the league since the start of January. I think that also with Denver essentially being back to full strength here, there's a lot of situations where the pricing isn't that great, because like Jokic, for example, I absolutely love the spot. He should be able to just go absolutely nuts against whatever combination of centers Detroit runs out there against him. But with Mason Plumlee back, we've seen all season long that Jokic typically plays like 32 to 34 minutes when Plumlee is backing him up, compared to playing like 36 to 38 when Plumlee is injured. So that makes his projection a little bit lower, and it puts it so, while I think he does still have a high ceiling, I don't have him in the same category as guys like Giannis or Davis or LeBron up above 10K. So or even as some cheaper priced centers that look a little bit better point per dollar wise. So you have that. You have Just, Millsap's back, so obviously Grant's not playing as many minutes. Millsap himself probably plays 25 to 26, but it's tough to think he gets much more than that. So nothing that I'm really prioritizing here. Obviously Jokic, if you can get to him, it's fine. It's a high ceiling guy. It's just that I'm not putting him ahead of the other expensive options. Will Barton, I think, is probably the most appealing when you factor in position, because he does have small forward eligibility, which isn't a really strong position. He dealt with some foul trouble last game, but I think that barring that, you get 30 to 32 minutes from him. And then Mason Plumlee falls into that same exact category as Nerlens Noel, where he projects for right around 19 DraftKings points at 3,200. But if the game blows out or Jokic gets in foul trouble or whatever, and Plumlee happens to play 20 minutes, he's probably one of the better values.
Okay. Yeah, for me, Will Barton, just based on his salary, is appealing. And not to mention when you're talking about the position today, you and I discussed it with Danilo Gallinari. Man, there are not a lot of quality options here. And while Barton can definitely have some ugly games, so he's what, 5,500 and Gallinari's 6,100, right? On DraftKings at least. So right now, Gallinari's coming in at 35% ownership. You know where Will Barton is?
Not 35%.
What's up?
I said not 35%.
Not 35%, 16%. So less than half of the ownership of Gallinari. I'll take Barton in a spot like that all day. It's not like he's going unowned, but small forward's pretty weak. And I don't know. I don't think Barton's that much riskier than somebody like Gallinari. With Nikola Jokic, though, I don't know how much I'm going to get to him for two reasons. One, well, we already talked about Giannis. Two, the second to last game on this slate that has a 240 total might have a few appealing options in there as well. Do you have anything else for Denver that you want to touch on?
I do not.
What about Detroit, man? They have a 100-point implied total today.
I think they're going to be one of the most annoying teams from a DFS standpoint going forward. They don't have anything to play for. They gave up essentially their entire team as far as, quality players, or they're injured. And so I think it's just a team where from game to game, I think the rotations are going to be pretty inconsistent. You go back 2 games ago, you got a bunch of minutes for Svi. You got a bunch of minutes for, I think, Sekou Doumbouya played like 39 minutes. Last game, Svi played 15 minutes. He started the first quarter, started the third quarter, didn't play anything else. Brandon Knight plays 20 minutes. John Henson plays, I think it was 24 minutes. They won that game. So it's just, I don't think that you can really project this team with a whole lot of confidence game to game. I think a lot probably is dependent on how the game's going, who's playing well, what Dwayne Casey wants to see in that particular game. So I think that the one guy that I feel the most confident in tonight, and I don't even say that with a whole lot of confidence, but Derrick Rose, only 5,600, played 28 minutes last game. I only have him in for 26 here, but without Griffin or Drummond on the floor this year, 33.9% usage rate, 49.1% assist percentage. You should at least get a ton of opportunities. Then you're kind of just rolling the dice on cheap guys like Sekou Doumbouya or Svi, who right now we have projected for the 5th highest ownership on DraftKings.
Mm-hmm.
That if that doesn't go down, I think that I'm fine just not being there, because even if he plays like 30 something minutes, it's not like he's a really productive player anyway. And there's obviously a chance that he plays less. So there's nothing that I really like from Detroit except for, to some extent, Derrick Rose.
A lot of that too has to do with the fact that, again, the wing positions leave you wanting a little bit. Of course, we'll get to Boston next, but yes, fee ownership right now is, whew, I know that he's very cheap. All right. We understood, but I mean, what would you be happy with from Svi? 25
points? Yeah.
I'd be thrilled with that.
Right. Like I have him at 27 minutes right now, and it's just not even that appealing of an option. And there's obviously downside risk on those minutes too. The one thing to keep an eye on is that Bruce Brown is questionable.
Correct.
If he's out, that opens up, 32 minutes that need to be soaked up by guys like Svi.
Oh, wow. Big news. Malik Monk will start ahead of Devontae Graham today.
Devontae Graham uncertain.
So that actually that changes things quite a bit for two reasons, and then I want to get your opinion. Let's go back because we got plenty of time, okay? Because this could play a pivotal role in how we review this slate. So Malik Monk's been playing big minutes, and he's been getting up a good amount of shots. He's shooting pretty well, particularly from long range, but that's what he does. He's a shooter. Devontae Graham, even when he was shooting poorly, was dishing out assists at a very high clip, right? You look at his assist rate, you look at his assists over his last 10, 10, 8, 9, 5, 10, 10, 11, 8, 7, only 2 in that last one, but they got their doors blown off. Taking him off the floor and replacing him with Malik Monk in the starting lineup should benefit Terry Rozier from the sense of initiating the offense and being a playmaker. I think at Rozier's price point, in the event that Graham doesn't play, that bumps him up quite a bit, at least for me.
I agree with you. He's got a 29.6% assist percentage and a 24.5% usage rate in 397 minutes alongside Monk without Graham this year. So should do a lot for his assist numbers.
What about Monk now that he's in the starting lineup? But I'm going to operate under the assumption that Graham's not playing until further notice.
Yeah, I'm doing the same. I think that it makes Monk a little bit more appealing because you can give him a couple of extra minutes. I think there's a decent chance that his ownership goes up more than it probably should, because you have to keep in mind, this is still a very, very unappealing matchup. And it's not like Malik Monk is a really cheap option. He's already priced up because he's been playing close to 30 minutes. So even if you give him a couple more minutes, I think, he looks okay, but I think there's a good chance that his ownership kind of skyrockets more than it should.
I would think so too. All right. Let's move it back to this one. We'll close it out. Denver, Detroit. I think we hit on everything, right? Anything else from Christian Wood there's really not much here.
No.
All right. Portland, Boston. What do we got? Portland Trailblazers. Pretty big home dogs here. I think they're getting 7.5 points. This one, by the way, there's been a lot of line movement in some of these games. This opened at 5. It's at 7.5 now. 223 total. No Kemba Walker for the Celtics. No Damian Lillard for the Trailblazers. Kick it off with CJ McCollum. And I want to kind of dive into this one because, Adam, last game, he blew up. Just monster performance. He played 43 minutes in regulation. So assuming this game does stay close, let's just say it does, you're probably getting around 40 minutes from McCollum. It wouldn't surprise me at all. They're 2 games out of a playoff spot. It's not going to mean anything if they get in. There'll be a first round exit, but Memphis has really, really struggled lately. They're limping into the final quarter of the season. So Terry Stotts actually has a reason to play some of these guys. The problem is rostering guards against players like Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown is never fun. So ultimately, as I throw this over to you, is McCollum's 30+% usage, 30+% assist rate, potential 40 minutes with Lillard off the floor going to be enough to roster him, especially at low ownership?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you go back 3 seasons looking at games that Damian Lillard hasn't played. You get about 14 games. He's averaged about 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. And the minutes are really the big thing for me because obviously it's not a great matchup against Boston, but I only have him projected for 38, and I think he very easily can play more than that.
Yeah, I don't have him for 40, but I'm saying I think he could easily play 40 plus like last game.
Yeah, I mean, he just played 43, and the thing is, even when Lillard's healthy, he plays 37 or 38 minutes usually. So it's just such big minutes. He's got a 33% usage rate over those 3 seasons in games that Lillard doesn't play. This season, without Lillard on the floor, it's up over 34%. So, high usage rate, assist percentage around 30% in the games he's played without Lillard over the last few years. I understand it's a tough matchup, and maybe there's a little bit of sticker shock at 9K because it's not a price point we normally see him at. But I think that just based on opportunities and the fact that he's not projected to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate, he looks like a really appealing option to me.
Okay. Me too. And earlier today, he was like 11% on FanDuel. That seems wild. As more information rolls in, our ownership updates, and we've got CJ McCollum on FanDuel, still below 20%. On DraftKings, he's around 12%, but he's also more expensive. I still think, given the size of the slate, that's pretty low ownership on somebody that could play 40 plus minutes. The game's got to stay close, but you know what? Efficiency is less important than the opportunity here. And my assumption, CJ McCollum's going to see a shit ton of opportunity in this game.
Yep, I agree.
What about guys like Whiteside, who is or has remained above 9K on DraftKings? He's up at $9,600 on FanDuel. Carmelo Anthony, you know, it's funny. I said this the other day. It might have been to Josh. No one's had a tougher time putting together complete games than Carmelo Anthony. One day he'll have 15 rebounds and 5 points. The next day he'll have 18 rebounds, or 18 points, 1 rebound, or 32 points, 4 rebounds. He hasn't had that game yet, right? Where he gives you 25 and 10. It will come because he's capable of doing both. But man, it's been like such Jekyll and Hyde type performances from a guy who is not a terrible rebounder and is not afraid to get shots up, especially with Lillard off the floor. Are you willing to pay for him in a tough spot against the Blazers, or I'm sorry, against the Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, not a priority for me, but I think that the minutes should certainly be there, getting 36 plus. The per minute production for him with and without Lillard it changes, but not by a huge margin. He goes from like 0.82 to 0.93. But the thing that really does change is that when Lillard's on the floor, Melo's around a 20.5% usage guy. Without Lillard on the floor, Melo's usage jumps to 27.5%.
That's a huge difference.
Right, which he's still not very efficient, and that's why you don't see a bigger bump in his per minute numbers. But a big bump like that to usage does have a big impact on ceiling because he's obviously getting the opportunities. He's not afraid to take them, and you just need shots to fall and some extra rebounds to bounce his way. But all the opportunities will be there. I think that at 6K, he's a pretty solid option.
Gareth E. in Super Chat, I'll say this much, friend. You tried. All right. What about anything else other than the guys that we've already spoken of? I know that one player that's been seeing a little bit of recognition on this slate is Gary Trent Jr. $4,500 on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, he's weighing in at $4,600. Shooting guard eligible there. I think one thing to consider is Malik Monk is starting now and is going to see quite a bit of usage in an offense that really doesn't have any go-to primary scoring options in the starting lineup, unless you want to count like Rozier or PJ Washington as one of those. So for me, I'd rather go with Monk at $400 more on DraftKings. But what are you doing with Gary Trent Jr.?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of no matter what rates I look at, taking Lillard off, looking at games that Lillard didn't play at all, pretty much no matter what I do, Gary Trent's rates just don't give me a good enough projection for me to be that interested in him, even if I expect around 34 minutes. I think that there's just better, mid $4,000 options than Gary Trent against the Celtics.
Close out the Blazers for me.
That's, pretty much it. I think that Ariza falls into that same category as Gary Trent, where he plays big minutes, but he's priced up enough where I don't really like him that much. It's basically McCollum as the number one guy, and then Whiteside, and then Melo, and then I'm not really interested.
Okay. Boston gets interesting. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. It's funny because with Kemba off the floor, Jaylen Brown still has an 8% assist rate, but he's an 11% rebounder. His usage rate comes up around 27%. You're going to rely. He is actually kind of scoring dependent because despite his defensive acumen, he's not going to rack up a ton of stocks. But Jason Tatum, Adam, has been. I want to set the table for you here because there's a lot to digest when it comes to this team. Jason Tatum has been crushing it. His last 10 games, 29 points, almost 7.3 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 2.5 stocks, almost 50 DraftKings points. But here's something. I was doing a little research today. Found this very interesting. So, and this is in the deep dive. You can find it at awesemo.com. It's a premium article, but it's worth it. Adam writes it a bunch of days a week. So he's getting to the rim really easily, but not only is he doing that, you take the last month of basketball, only 4 players are averaging more points on drives to the rim than Tatum, but he's 25th in drives to the rim over that span. So he isn't driving nearly as much as your Westbrooks and the list goes on of, litany of guards, but he's been so efficient on scoring. And if you've watched any Jason Tatum over the last 1+ months, you've seen that he's really imposing his will upon opponents in the paint, on drives, and around the basket.
Yeah, he's looked really, really good, and you get more opportunities without Kemba, obviously. In games without Walker this year, it's actually kind of surprising. Tatum only has a 29% usage rate. Without Kemba on the floor, it's up at like 32 or 33%. Part of that, just has to do with the way that Stevens has staggered minutes in normal games this year. But I think also that if you were to play like every game without Kemba going forward, you would see a higher usage rate over time for Tatum. I think he should be the number one scorer on this team. He contributes assists and rebounds as well. It's a favorable matchup against Portland. So I think all that looks really, really good. And the only thing that kind of hurts Tatum is that he is expensive. It's a good matchup, but at 8,800, there just are a lot of other options that, have similar ceilings at least.
Yeah, I think so. But I might like him a little bit more than you do. So it is a Blazers team. The last month they've been real bad defensively, 27th in defensive rating, playing at like the 10th or 11th fastest pace. If you're looking at Jason Tatum and you're comparing him, let's say on DraftKings, to Sabonis at 9K, Tatum's 8,800, Siakam is 8,500. Who is your 1, 2, and 3 of that trio?
Tatum 1, Siakam 2, Sabonis 3.
Okay, that's exactly where I have it. So it's just you don't have him as a priority, but you do prefer him over the similarly priced forwards.
Yeah, I have him a little bit ahead of Siakam. It's more that I don't know how easy it'll be to get to that price range.
Right, and that's a fair point. What are you doing with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart?
I think Jaylen Brown's salary at 6,600 on DraftKings looks like the most appealing option from that team. Obviously, the same good matchup against Portland, but you mentioned he is scoring dependent, but he's got a 27.2% usage rate in games that Kemba hasn't played this year, and he's going to play big minutes as well. So I think that his price tag hasn't really come up quite as much as it should. Marcus Smart is a secondary option for me just because there are so many guards. I think that there's spots to pay up for that I like a little bit more. There's spots that are a little bit cheaper that I like a little bit more. From Boston, I would prioritize it. Jaylen number 1, followed by Tatum, Hayward, then Tice, then Marcus Smart.
Nick, the odds might look pretty. You might see value on Tatum MVP, but 0 chance that happens. What would you give percentage chance that Tatum is MVP? 1.1
this season?
Yeah. 0.01.
Yeah. Like 0.
Yeah. I mean, what would you give that Giannis is? Realistically speaking, 92%.
Yeah. Like 90.
Right. It's gotta be up there. Any other interest in Boston? We had I saw in our super chat, a couple questions about Nick, how about White Sox to win their division at plus 350? So baseball can't come quick enough. What about the front court? We had a couple questions in super chat.
The front court here is really, really interesting, I think, because, we mentioned Daniel Tice looks fine at 4,900. He's been playing big minutes, but I don't really know what to do with Enes Kanter as far as, by that, I mean, I don't really know. I think there's a very, very, very wide range of outcomes for him here. He hasn't stepped on the floor in the second half in either of Boston's last 2 games. Granted, those weren't the most appealing matchups for him anyway, but you would expect him to play at least a little bit. Like for part of Boston's last game, Grant Williams was out there over Kanter, even though Dwight Howard was on the floor for the Lakers. So I don't really know exactly what's going on there, but the flip side of that is Kanter's only 3,300 on DraftKings. He's, a 1.2 to 1.3 DraftKings point per minute player. He is going against a traditional center in Whiteside that's going to be out there for a lot of minutes. And it's just, if I have to guess between now and, for the next month, does Kanter ever play a normal 17 or 18 minutes? I would assume the answer is yes. And he's going to be low owned because of recent games in a spot where he should have a lot of success. So ultimately he's in that same category with Mason Plumlee and Nerlens Noel. It's just that I'm less confident in his minutes than theirs because we've seen 2 games in a row where he just didn't even play in the second half. But as far as, cheap, high upside, volatile plays, he gives you a lot higher ceiling than most, $3,300 players do.
Actually, we got to move on. Let's get to these last 2. So we have 2 to go here. One of them more important than the others, but both of them important nevertheless. And hey, Live Before Lock is coming up next, so you'll want to stick around for them. And last thing before I kick this game off, if you guys enjoy the show, the easiest and way to support us is to hit that thumbs up button. We appreciate all of you that tune in and watch this and every day have made this a part of your routine. And all of you guys who have donated in the super chat. I forget all your names over the week, but you guys are greatly appreciated, as well as all of our premium subs that hang out each day in the premium Slack chat. LA Lakers, New Orleans. Here we go, man. The moment we've all been waiting for. 239 over under. This is what makes this game really interesting. So it's a 239.5 total. The Lakers have the highest implied total on the slate by 7 points almost. 123.3. Now the Bucks have come up a little bit, but the Pels did have the second highest implied total on the entire slate. So even though they're 7-point dogs, it was 1 and 2 pretty much throughout the entire day. LeBron James, 1.6 plus fantasy point per minute guy on the season. Anthony Davis, forget about the narrative. This is a spot that he should be able to produce a very fast pace up spot. I will say this, since Zion made his debut, the Pelicans have played better defense, but they are also still playing at the second fastest pace in the league over that same span. So let's kick it off. LeBron, Anthony Davis, two very interesting options today against the Pelicans team, specifically for LeBron, that has really struggled in transition defense, where he's 6th in scoring this season.
Yeah, I think, obviously two of the top plays on the slate in Davis and LeBron, similarly priced. Normally when they're priced close to each other, I give the edge to LeBron because he's typically the better per minute guy. He, gives you the assists. He's normally a little bit higher usage guy than Davis. But here I think it's a lot closer because, you mentioned that the Pels struggle in transition, but they've also allowed the third most post-up possessions per game, which is a big deal for Anthony Davis. They don't really have an answer for him, and you've seen that in the first two games. LeBron admitted, or the Lakers in general, admitted that in the first game they were kind of force-feeding Anthony Davis the ball because he was playing the Pelicans for the first time. In the second game, they did it again, though, and they said that it had nothing to do with anything other than there was nobody out there that could defend Anthony Davis, and he was just doing whatever he wanted in the paint. So I expect to see more of that. I'm not projecting a 38% usage rate for Davis again, which is what he has through the first two games against the Pels, while LeBron is only at 28%. But I did bump Davis's usage a little bit, a little bit higher than his average, and it does make him look like a little bit better option here. So I think him and LeBron project really similarly for me. Davis is a little bit cheaper, so he gets a little bit of an edge in that category. But as far as ownership goes, you have them about the same. So if ownership holds where they're about the same, I give a slight edge to Davis just because he's a little cheaper. If one of them starts to become more popular than the other, then I would just prefer the other one.
How much do you prefer them though in context?
You mean compared to like Giannis?
Sorry, yes, in context to the rest of the slate.
I would rather, if I can do it without sacrificing too much as far as like a 2v2 or 3v3, I would rather get 15% owned Giannis than 18% owned either of Davis or LeBron.
Okay. I do like both of them quite a bit today. I think the Pels keep this game competitive. I do. They've been playing much better basketball. They've had some nice bounces go their way, knocking down a ton of threes at a high clip, but I do think it's a competitive enough game. I like LeBron. I like Davis a lot. I'm with you on Giannis, but I'm all over both of these big guys, or big guys in terms of name recognition. LeBron and Anthony Davis. Aside from them, do you get to anybody from the Lakers?
Yeah, I think that actually there's a couple of value pieces that are pretty appealing. Normally, we kind of just move on, but Danny Green's only 3,300, and Avery Bradley is also 3,300, and KCP is 3,200. I don't want to be playing all these guys together, but I think there's a really good chance at least one of these guys has a big game just because of how many possessions the Lakers should have and how weak the New Orleans defense is. We've also been seeing more minutes from Avery Bradley lately with 29, 29, and 31 minutes over his last three. It seems like that stretch of time where he was just playing 22 minutes a night is pretty much over. So, I think all three of them project for like 18 to 19 DraftKings points, but there's a pretty good chance, I think, that one of them has a good game here.
Devontae Graham now not expected to play. What are you doing with the Pels?
I think Brandon Ingram is the guy that stands out the most.
He's still too only cheap.
Yeah, he's 6,800 on DraftKings. Obviously, it's a tough matchup against the Lakers, but he should just be more expensive than that. He's not going to be the same type of producer that he was before Zion came back, but he should still be the second highest usage guy on the team. Since they're in games with Zion, he has a 26% usage rate, 18.4% assist percentage, and you should get around 34 minutes here. So Ingram looks like the priority to me from the Pels. Everything else, drops off, whether it's Zion or Drew or Lonzo.
That's really all I have here. And ownership kind of not dictates, but shows you there is not that much. For me, Ingram's price, it's just a great spot for him. Now, it's a high total game, but it's also a pace down spot for the Pels against a good Lakers team. Yeah, for me, it's Ingram, it's LeBron, and it's Anthony Davis in this one. But also a game where I wouldn't be surprised if you did want to take some shots on low-owned players. In my opinion, this is the spot to do it, just based on if this game turns into a track meet, things could get very interesting. Adam, Draymond Green out. This is our last game, and Live Before Lock follows us. We're up against it, but I want your takes on the Golden State Warriors and Sacramento. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox, a very popular option today.
Yeah, I think Fox looks like one of the best plays on the slate. His production's been down recently. Since Bogdanović joined the starting lineup, you've seen usage go up for Fox, but his per minute production has actually come down to 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. Part of that, or a lot of that, probably just has to do with sample size, so I'm not too concerned about it. And I'm much more interested in the fact that he's only 7,600 facing a bad Golden State team. So I think Fox looks like one of the best plays, should get a lot of ownership, and I think he deserves it. Beyond that, it's tough to trust too much from Sacramento. You have a $4,400 Harry Giles, which is appealing coming off of a 32-minute game, played about 26 minutes the game before that. Alex Len is back. I think that it makes the minutes for Giles riskier because there's no real reason that in any one game Len can't play more minutes and take minutes from Giles. But I think Giles is still a decent value. And then on the other side, you have Marquise Chris expected to play for Golden State. Draymond Green is out. I think that it makes Kai Bowman still a reasonable value, especially if you're playing a slate where he's cheaper. He's 4,800 on DraftKings, which isn't really that appealing. But I think that Chris being in makes it so, you're certainly not getting to like the Dragan Bender type value with Chris in. Golden State's pretty priced up on DraftKings. I still think there's a little bit of excess value on guys like Eric Paschall or Damian Lee, but overall just secondary guys for me from the Warriors.
Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks for hanging out as always. Hit that thumbs up before you go, or don't go anywhere. Stick around for Live Before Lock. And listen up, listen close. We're doing a podcast giveaway. If you listen to our daily shows, win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. All you have to do is review the podcast on Awesemo or on iTunes with your Awesemo username, and you'll be entered to win. Also, go to @Awesemo_com. Check out the pinned tweet for today's giveaway for an NBA monthly pass. Oh, and follow Adam, follow myself on Twitter. Our handles are right above our names. It's the best decision you'll ever make. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive presented by what, Josh?
Super Draft.
Excited here, Eddie. It was a weekday.
Didn't quite get called up to the big show,
Yeah, I was
but
about
we're
to say, you got
close.
promoted, but you're still stuck with me in AAA. They're not bringing you on at 5 o'clock yet, where the big boys play.
Not yet. Maybe for baseball, I'll get to make that leap.
Another 15, 20 years in the industry. I'm telling you, you can get there.
Yes, we shall see. But hey, 30 days until baseball. That's March 26th. It's a Thursday. Every team playing for the third straight year. And SuperDraft does have baseball, or they will for the regular season. Right now they do have basketball, and that is important. So if you have not gone over there yet, it is superdraft.io. And of course, you can use the promo code Awesemo when making your first deposit. If it's $100, they will give you $20 in super cash. We are also staying on tonight until 7:30, which is when SuperDraft will be locking their contests. There is one 7 o'clock game, Eddie. That game is Charlotte and Indiana. Fortunately, Adam and Lofty did the heavy lifting on that one, so we don't have to talk about it if we don't want to, except Devontae Graham is now not playing, and Malik Monk is going to be in the starting lineup there. We also know Victor Oladipo is not going to be playing. In our second game, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo, an overtime back-to-back. God, he must have been killed last night. No, he only played 25 minutes. He fouled out for just the fourth time in his career during the regular season, but still had a nice line, just not a Giannis Antetokounmpo line. And then most importantly, I'm going to put the link to my pinned tweet into the chat here. There's a birthday boy in the Fred Van Elite contest. Yeah. It is Fred Van Elite himself.
Is he like 26, 27?
I thought 25, but today's the 25th, so that may be what I'm thinking of. And Devontae Graham, speaking of, just turned 25 a couple days ago. So I'll have to look that up. But what are your thoughts here? We'll kind of hit some of these injury situations and go with a bunch of questions here. There's a lot of tournaments out there tonight. But one 7 o'clock game, one 7:30 game. A little easier pace. I think I'm mostly focusing on the games after that since I am on air tonight for my lineup building. There was a little bit of a kerfuffle there yesterday, but we'll talk about that later. But what do you like here from the promotion from Malik Monk? He did make it to the show where I did not yet.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit. This is obviously going to come down to how much of an ownership spike he gets with that much news coming. I suspect it to be ending up being pretty neutral for me as far as how much I like him as a play, because he is a very strong play. It varies a little bit site by site, but 4,900 on DraftKings specifically feels very good. I think it is also a relevant pickup for Terry Rozier. So a lot of this comes down to exactly where he ends up being owned. I think he gets into the high 20s, which feels about right. It's not a great matchup, but obviously never afraid to chuck the ball. Ends up projecting very similarly in minutes matchup exposure, exactly how I expect it to work out today for Kobe White. Saving a little bit of money there, maybe a little higher owned. So don't have a strong take there. I would say that I already like Rozier at his price at 5,600 and $5,000 on FanDuel. And I actually expect this to lean a little more into his hands. I like this game. I liked it a bit for him anyway. He's obviously very cheap, has not been in great form recently. This is the fourth matchup between these two teams. They played first week or so into 2020. Also worth pointing out that Charlotte is on a back-to-back. They're in Indiana tonight. They are home hosting the Knicks tomorrow. But yeah, for me, it is a minor cookie for Miles Bridges, a slightly larger cookie for Terry Rozier, this does increase my projection for him based on having seen him play next to Monk in limited time. And next to Graham, I expect him to bring the ball up a fair amount more. So doesn't make him a super priority for me. But if we're thinking that Rozier, who is going to be, 20% owned, drops down to 12, and Monk goes all the way up to, 30 or so, I'd be a little more interested in being on top of the Rozier number and under the Monk number. But again, I'll take a look at ownership for the first time today, because I've been looking at other things for a while now, but I expect him to get a pretty good kick, because it's worth standing with. We have him at number one at 44%. Okay. That's too much for me. I like Malik Monk just fine. That's too high. That number should be around 30%. He does not project markedly better than a pile of other plays in that range. The matchup isn't brilliant moving into the starting lineup. Less so with this team, which does suffer from a real dearth of high usage options, but still for Malik Monk, who gets significant periods of time on the court where he's really just the man up in there and can do anything he wants. Now he handles the ball less because he'll be spending more time next to Terry Rozier. I don't think the usage holds at the level it has. So 44% on him seems pretty high. Then I see we have Terry Rozier at 41%. So this is getting all kinds of interesting. I would not have thought that many people would have pivoted that way. So both those numbers feel a little bit high for me. And on a night that runs kind of late, these are DraftKings specific ownership, and we can look at some other sites. You are losing some flexibility to pivot later in the night in the advent of additional news, which is possible. We have a couple other back-to-backs coming. We just have getting into spring basketball, which is a little bit more chaotic. So I'm locking more players early. So 44 and 41% on our ownership is free today, right? So I can just read this crap off. I'm not divulging state secrets.
For those on the back end, I tried to get to it, but I couldn't. So
okay, well, it's not super critical either way. I won't read the whole darn list then, but
it'll change at least twice before then, because that's the best thing about ownership. It updates on news. So I think you can go ahead and mention a few crumbs here and there for everybody to get a little taste. Just we'll see what's going on.
So yeah, those numbers are still a little bit too high for me, but it is worth taking a step back at the slate and noting how generically poor the value is there, and it's worth taking that as a bit of context to at least briefly mention some of the other value on this team. You could randomly pick up 28 minutes of Cody Martin now at $3,200. Again, make sure you play Cody Martin and not Caleb Martin, who did play in the last game. I don't know if he's back down with the G League for this one, but regardless, Cody would be the one you want, and that's Cody Martin, not Cody Zeller. There's all sorts of name shenanigans on this team. Doesn't do a lot for me for PJ Washington. Does do a little bit for Miles Bridges, but still not someone I have ranked very highly. So I think someone's telling me my most recent upload turned my Terry Rozier. Oh no, it looks right. Yeah, my Devontae Graham somehow still stuck. I assume he's officially out, but he was in D and a C in my most recent one, so that's the highest rating he would have. But just worth working at another guy on the team. You could now be slightly more ambitious about Cody Martin or even Jalen McDaniels on a day where like the 3.x value is pretty crappy. My favorite 3.x value, by the way, is across the ball in this game. I kind of like TJ McConnell. I got a couple questions about him not playing in the second half last game. He was injured. He turned an ankle, I'm 99% sure, but he was absolutely injured, which is why he missed the second half of the Magic game, which was the day before yesterday. I thought he might be questionable there or something. It did not look great. He is not even on the injury report. So, as of 7 hours ago, they had no doubt he would play. At $3,200, he's more productive than a lot of the other value plays we're looking at. I don't hate the matchup for him. So that's obviously worth talking about. Obviously, when we're dealing with, they confirmed Sumner out as well, right? Because we obviously have
I believe they did.
No Oladipo, no Lamb for the year. Stayed in like a boss, took his free throws, and then they were like, he has knee soreness, and then they're like, and a slightly fractured leg, and a torn ACL, and a torn meniscus, and then
did he tear them? I didn't realize he had.
Yeah, he's jacked. He's done. So, but Sans all those guys. FanDuel,
Edmund Sumner is out.
He is out. That's what I thought. So FanDuel, I think you suck it up a little more and go with what I think is $3,700 Aaron Holiday. DraftKings, there's a couple other choices to look at on this Indiana team. The prices on your studs there are all fairly high. I don't mind. I think I have double B rankings on both Brogdon and Sabonis. Their prices are high. I do like this news for Brogdon a little bit, so he feels a little better for me, but he's been out of form a little bit. I attributed a lot of that to the differences in the offensive system they've been running since Oladipo came back, where they've been spreading a fair bit more, and it just increases the number of passes and decreases the speed, and it's just going to affect his downside a little bit more. But Brogdon or Sabonis you can get to. DraftKings pricing, Warren Turner, my favorites. I don't mind Aaron Holiday at all now, who should get you 30 plus minutes, only 4,600. Again, this game obviously going to be incredibly slow. but really gives you some more chance for TJ McConnell, my favorite piece of the value if you're going.
Would you go on DK for the $1,600 savings? Is it TJ over Aaron Holiday, or is that getting a little too cheap?
I think it's $1,400 savings because I think TJ's 3.2 and
you are correct.
Is 4.6, yep. But
a lot of it's going to depend on what else.
Yeah, I would have it very close. I imagine I would be a little more inclined to play McConnell because the existence of a 3-something value play that doesn't make me physically ill allows you lineup constructions that have been thus elusive to this point. So I imagine I'm slightly more inclined to play a play at 3.x that doesn't make me feel bad. But he's doing, a point a minute. I am getting 24 minutes here. During the course of the show, I'll try to find some warm-ups video of TJ McConnell to make sure he looks 100% to me, because that's the thing that's been valuable a few times this year. But FanDuel, Aaron Holiday, certainly the chalky guy, and I think that's fine to land on there, though at a loaded position to be sure. And his brother, Justin Holiday. By the way, if you want to have some fun tonight, you can play the 3 Holiday lineup. I don't mind it. They're all actually halfway decent now. I think Drew might be my least favorite. We should be looking at some real time here. Again, no Sumner, no Oladipo, so you're looking into the mid to high minutes for Justin as well there. So, yeah, that's a little more tolerable for all the holidays on FanDuel, really. But TJ McConnell on Draftkings at $3,200. I ended up putting it a B in cash and an A in GPPs pending injury news. That concerns me.
Someone mentioned Buddy Hield, and I just checked, was not on your rankings today.
Yeah, I don't want him. He played 15 minutes last game. He was $6,600. I wouldn't play him. Like he's a little bit doghouse. It had something to do with matchup, but he wasn't injured or anything. They played him 15 minutes, 16 minutes. He played some minutes in the teens last game.
He played 15 and then 27 the one before, 31. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, but they just, he's been grousing and it's a thing. And I think it's a fine match, but I intentionally removed him from the rankings. The rankings are literally the list of players I would have any shares of in 150 GPP lineups. I wouldn't play anybody Hield tonight. That's just me.
I am glad I called that out because I think that's a good one there. Thank you to whoever put that in our premium.
Yeah, great question. But no, I intentionally removed him. He has been grousing to a certain extent, and there's some consternation about his role with that team at this point. So I need him to, at that price, get to 30 minutes and play very well. It's a very good matchup. And if someone said, I'm playing Buddy Hield, I think he bounces back, and I like the matchup. I'm fine with that, but that lineup is becoming a little bit more dense. So I think his minutes are threatened going forward with both Bogey getting those starts at the 2 and him looking pretty good. Barnes is pretty well locked in now that you have, like last game, we had my boy, we had Harry, we had HG3 getting his 32 whatever minutes at start and Len backing him up. Those guys are going to eat all the center minutes. So by extension, Bielitsa has to get all his time at the 4. It just translates down where even if Buddy Hield's minutes are in no way limited by attitude playing whatever the hell, I would still put him at like 25, 26, and he really needs to go the hell off at $6,000 whatever dollars at that time and place. But I intentionally removed him for that reason.
All right. Does it boost anybody else in your opinion? I mean, Holiday's already a good play. Does this help Bogdan perhaps? Bogdanovich.
Right. Does what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Does Hield being out?
Oh, sorry. We just switched over. I was still in Indiana one.
Sorry.
Well, I like Fox. Everybody likes Fox. This obviously a fine matchup for him. Fox is really my priority here. Again, we have seen this matchup previously this year. I want to say twice. Pretty sure this is the third meeting between these two teams. Obviously, still no Bagley, no Holmes, but the rotation has been pretty dense. I worry about this game not being competitive. Like, we have the one game tonight that is scheduled to be within, like, I think everything has like a 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 point line, excepting the big game, Toronto and Milwaukee. And I think that might be even a little bit generous here. So I kind of worry about minutes for some of these other guys. It just factors into the prices for me. So, Fox, I do think is a reasonable priority. His ownership has come down a little bit. And that is a factor of some decent value opening up with some of these other plays. And so people are finally getting to spend up on the other stud plays they wanted to look at. But no, not overly excited about this. I like a couple of the Warriors a little bit more. I still like Eric Pascal a lot. Look, he was bad last game. This reminds me of, this happens 3 times a week. Tomas Satoransky. was fairly popular in a really good matchup, went out and absolutely crapped himself. And I went, this is still the same guy who yesterday I really liked in a good matchup. Matchup's a little worse today, but he's going to go from 30% on to 5. Let's play him at 5. He went out and had some 50 fantasy points. This is still Eric Pascal against the Kings in a matchup that I really like with no Draymond Green, who should play 30-something minutes. And yes, last game there was a little foul trouble, and he only played 31 minutes and was crap. But he can get 45 tonight, and he's cheap. And so if you're telling me I have his projection, I think 1.25 less than Malik Monk at approximately the same price. Malik Monk is apparently going to be 44% owned. Eric Pascal, because he had a bad game, is going to be 6% owned. I would rather play Eric Pascal at 6% owned in a single lineup. So same story with Andrew Wiggins, by the way.
Okay.
I did not like him in that game for the reason that he was going to be well too popular. And he shot like crap and still sustained a decent game because he's continued to pick up a lot of peripherals, which is bordering on a trend. I need to go back and watch a whole lot of basketball for this team because he's, for a number of games now, statistically much better. So I got to figure out rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. If this is something I continue to be real, you do have players who show a real lack of peripherals and then move to a better system where they're more frequently in place to acquire secondary statistics and get them. So there is a real chance that Wiggins being freed from the snowy north may consistently put up this kind of effort. But again, it's a short slate. There's not so many brilliant plays. And I think Wiggins, disappointing somewhat recently, will have fallen off from being 30 whatever percent on that day, which is well too high, to, I guess today we have him at like 12%. He costs basically the same thing as De'Aaron Fox, who we have at 25 or 30%. So let's see, that was my on the nose 12 point something, 12.3 if I'm columning that right. Look at that stud. Sorry. So yeah, one lineup, that's a pivot I'm happy to make. I do project Fox, I think 3.5 fantasy points higher, but double ownership, that's a pivot I'm perfectly happy to make there.
All right. Let's see. A couple questions since we're on these later games. Derek Favors' price is appearing nicely on DK. Would you go there in this matchup? Tough matchup, but big guys.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. A little bit more helpful going against Howard and JaVale, who aren't the most fleet of foot. Kind of helps out Favors at this point. How are you feeling about that? I believe he's 49 on DK.
Yeah, I like him a lot at 49. I think he's 51 on FanDuel, where he's center still. He's actually not one of the centers who's randomly a power forward there. Yeah, he's my favorite play on this team at ownership, maybe even more than Ingram. That would be close on DraftKings because Ingram is well underpriced. Also, third meeting for these two teams this year. Favors missed the first one. I think that was during the bereavement for his mother. The second one, he played the most minutes he played in any game this year. He played 34 minutes in that game. Had
a monster.
I think he had 15, 14, and 4 blocks. I don't know about assists and steals off the top of my head, but he had a very good game, and 4,900 in the ownership hasn't reacted quite as much as I would like. Melly was helpful in that game. Healthy in that game and did not play. Jackson Hayes got a little time off the bench, but yeah, he's got a very real chance of picking up some really significant time here. It's an island game for New Orleans, so vet worries, etc., are a little less concerning for me. So I like him quite a bit at $4,900. It would be him and then Ingram for me as real priorities. Ingram is just underpriced. He was very active in both games against the Lakers. I went back and watched significant portions of both. Second one, he was very good. The first one, he shot 4 for 20 something from the field, but he took 20 plus shots in both games. I don't like to be a revenge guy, but I don't think that was completely incidental. Though, again, I don't know quite how long something like that can happen. But regardless of all the ephemera, $6,800, especially on DraftKings, on a day where salary really does matter, is a very nice price for him.
Speaking of revenge, Davis or LeBron?
Davis, not terribly close for me. Revenge aside, it's a brilliant matchup for him.
Yes.
He was incredibly good the first 2 times this year. They don't have anyone who can really stop him. And the Lakers played smart as a team, and LeBron will go with a winning strategy. Zion's defense has been bad. It's getting a little better every game, but it's still bad. Some of their ratings have come up, since he's been with the team. I don't think that actually has anything to do with him. I think that small sample size, some easier opponents, a couple other things to watch him. He still makes mistakes and gets lost. This all being round way of saying, I have no reason to think that this team is any more suited to stop Anthony Davis than when they played the 2 previous times this year. And Anthony Davis had 46 points in a real line and 41 points in a real line, I think, those being the pointsy points. So he had 60, 70, 80 fantasy points in each of those 2 games. Very nice games. Even where LeBron is priced cheaper, I still end up with Anthony Davis a couple of points ahead. Nothing wrong with playing LeBron whatsoever, but if I'm putting one of those guys into a lineup, neither of them obviously very heavily owned. Anthony Davis is actually a fair bit of a priority for me.
How would you approach?
I will say Markieff Morris is available.
Okay.
If you are, looking, just full disclosure.
Well, I thought you were going to say if you're a glutton for punishment, but
no, that I mean, I ranked him, but you're looking at a blowout there or something. I mean, this game is in Los Angeles. They'd probably give him that fourth quarter run next to Kuzma in the blowout unit this time, but that does affect my ranking for Anthony Davis as far as his minutes by a little bit, but I'm a massive fan of Anthony Davis here. Also, an island game for the Lakers, which, especially at this point in the season, gearing up for the playoffs, them sort of coasting through first place, it is relevant for me that I think he should still get full time. So Anthony Davis, assuming their lineups are roughly commensurate, and then the teams or something, I would have him. I do prefer him a bit to LeBron. It would have to be like 2-1 until I would.
Who would be your favorite single entry FanDuel center tonight?
Top of my head, probably Derek Favors or Steven Adams. I'll go look at the ownership in a second and confirm that that's roughly where I'm estimating it to be, but I haven't looked at FanDuel ownership. But that price on Favors is very good for me. The ownership I don't expect to be significant. Steven Adams, this is the second matchup of the year for the Thunder and the Bulls. The Bulls, I've talked about their defense more than maybe any other team.
Adams 21, Favors about 5 on FanDuel for ownership.
Adams 21. Yeah, I mean, matchup center against the Bulls, and that's how that's going to go. It would be Favors pretty easily for me then.
Okay,
I guess that's cheap. It's saving you some money. Less of an issue on FanDuel, where again there has opened up a lot of value that has not been priced up appropriately there, as opposed to say DraftKings.
Who is your favorite player if you're starting one lineup on DraftKings? It's gonna be
made one FanDuel lineup. Let me look at it. I don't know. We talked about a lot of them.
I think
we've actually touched on most of the guys in this lineup.
Because I think McConnell you were okay with. Ingram, you had nice things to say. You've mentioned nice things about Davis, Fox. For the person asking about Brandon Ingram, if you scroll back a little bit, you'll be able to hear that. But pardon me, for not Brandon Ingram.
Someone sent a super chat, which we breezed past, which said, how do you feel about playing McConnell and Holiday in the same lineup on FanDuel? First of all, I don't know which Holiday that is, unfortunately. But my answer will be I don't mind either way.
Okay.
So there's very rarely will I have an objection with playing 2 guys when they're that cheap together on the same team. And there's not even really specific backups there. You're going to have TJ McConnell playing at least backup point guard, maybe more. Probably some 1 and 2. So we'll play a little bit next to Brogdon. You're going to have Aaron Holiday start at the nominal 2. You're going to have Justin Holiday back up the 2 and the 3. You're going to have Warren slide down more. So it's not even pure positional differential, but it was on FanDuel, and those guys cost, I don't know what TJ McConnell costs on FanDuel, but I'm presuming $3,600, give or take $100. And Holiday at 37 would not bother me in the least. They can obviously get there against Charlotte. Not a matchup I want to load up on because obviously the pace is so torpid, but torpid isn't a word. Torporous? Torpor. Well, right. whatever that version of the word torpor would be, it's slow. And so, but guys who cost 36, 37, it would have to be something very weird for me to have an issue with them.
All right. My apologies. I was not logged into the super account, so I couldn't see the super chats, but I am now. So any going forward will turn colors there for me. Yeah. It was Eric Pascal that you also had said some nice things about. Somebody was asking specifically about that.
I like Pascal. I like Wiggins for that reason. I like Pascal a little bit more because he's in a price range where he's going to pivot very nicely away from a lot of other popular, 5K or 5K esque plays. Another reason I like Favors. He turns into, obviously it's a bit more, but you see that turning into a lot of Gallinari. You see that turning into other guys. So at that price point, you get a little extra differentiation. So I like them.
All right. Going to Denver, and then we're going to come back and we'll get to Boston and Portland. Denver, we had a nice question there about Jamal Murray. I have another question. What do you like for potential blowout run or mop-up duty, since most everybody has a direct backup there? Would you like Porter Jr.? Would you like Grant? Would you consider Plumlee?
I like Monty Morris a lot. Regardless, I don't recall what he ended up being ranked at. I looked at him a lot today, but the issue being they ran a pretty tight 10-man rotation for a while, where you had Murray, Morris, and then Harris, Beasley, and then Barton backed up by most frequently Craig, and then you had Millsap, Grant, Jokic, Plumlee. They had that pretty good 10 going, and then Malik Beasley was sent obviously to Minnesota. And in this last game, we saw Monty Morris playing a lot next to Jamal Murray, and that's fairly exciting because he's going to back up the one, so he's still going to get his 15, 16 minutes of handling the ball, but additionally he's going to play next to him a significant amount. That's pretty appealing to me. He's 4,800. I can't project him for as much as Monk or even Pascal, but I'd want to have some ownership there, and I think he would still be involved in the blowout run. So Monty Morris would be a piece for me. After that, probably would go to Mason Plumlee, who can put up a giant line in the event of a blowout. And again, this is a pretty significant line in this game, so that's not weird. So I would like probably Mason Plumlee as my next guy, who I always like to pick blowout guys who are going to have their own 10, 12, 15, 18-minute role in the rotation and to play in the blowout in the event that happens. And that would qualify for him. So Monty Moore is probably the first guy of interest for me in that scenario. And then I would go to Mason.
And then any interest in Barton or Millsap, or would you like Pascal better than those guys?
In one tournament lineup, I would probably rather have Pascal because of what I'm guessing the ownership is. I would expect Millsap coming off a giant game and Barton being someone who's better known as being able to pack that kind of upside and still being in a vacuum. It's a really good matchup for him. Pace isn't everything you'd like to see, but it's still a really good matchup, $5,500. Barton just going out and dropping 40 is not a weird thing. Like, he just projects very well point per dollar. So if I had to guess, we'll have Barton owned in the high teens or low 20s, Millsap, closer to 15, and I'll guess Pascal is closer to 10 because people see a bad game and go, oh, they are who we thought we were. That's just some crappy kid. And we have a pretty good sample there. So in one tournament lineup, yeah, I would play Pascal over those two guys, and additionally save $100 off Millsap and $500 off Barton if I'm remembering everyone's salaries perfectly. But I like all those plays at those prices. Like Millsap last game, that obviously turned out. I do think that was more production and more minutes than we will frequently see from him. This is an entirely healthy team in a matchup with a Detroit team that, while very anemic defensively, is incredibly slow. So certainly wouldn't want to overexpose there. You mentioned originally we didn't get back to Jamal Murray. An incredibly high upside play in this situation. It's just not a team you can overexpose yourself to because the prices aren't so cheap anymore. We're also burying the lead. Not talking about Jokic yet. This is the second meeting between these two teams. I don't recall the score of the first one or any of the stats, and I didn't go back and looked at it because I just remembered Denver handled them fairly well in Detroit in that game, I might add. And Jokic had 39 sticks in my head, but a gigantic game, and there's absolutely no reason he can't do something similar here today. Everyone being healthy does end up limiting his minutes when everyone is back for that team. So it is a big thing, similar to Rudy Gobert. When they have a backup behind him they're more comfortable with, they play him 5-6 fewer minutes. It's a real relevant thing for Jokic. So while I think he's a fine play, I'm a little less excited to play him without looking at the ownership first than Davis, Giannis, Braun, some of the other spend-up options. So I feel like I'm missing something. Do I like Cantor on FanDuel? I don't know his price on FanDuel offhand. He's $3,300 on DraftKings. In a vacuum, I think he's a strong GPP play. You're obviously dealing with a matchup with Portland that actually is very good production for centers, and you basically need something to go weird with Tice. Like, they're going to want to have Tice out there for as much of this game as possible. This is the first time this year that the Celtics and the Trailblazers have played. So I'm intuiting this. I don't actually know it, but I do think this is not the spot where they will stop force feeding Tice minutes as much as they have recently. And I know he's not playing, infinite minutes, but getting him over 30 even is a significant imbalance relative to what we see. Kanter hasn't played in the second half, I think, of the last 2 games. Played 6 minutes in the last game, I think it was. So I still like it as a tournament play. Again, there's it's not as safe as, say, TJ McConnell, in my opinion. But I would rather go there than if he's still popular, Svi Mikhailuk or any of those options. So I think he's a fine tournament play with the understanding he's going to play 16 minutes or less, probably 2/3 of the time, maybe 3/4 of the time. At some point, I do expect that to renormalize. But even in this time and in this matchup, I would not be shocked to see big upside there. And plus, Enes Kanter revenge.
All right. Speaking of Tice, could you please rank these DK centers? And then I'm going to ask you a couple more questions about the game, the Boston game. Turner, Favors, Tice, and Harry Giles.
Well, Giles is $500 to $700 cheaper than the other 3. I love Harry Giles.
How do you feel about Harry Giles' knees?
I want to know how Harry Giles' knees feel is sort of more the issue there.
All right, because I put this in our stuff, and then I can read you the ranking thing again. So Giles has started 9 games in his 88 NBA games. He has topped 23 minutes 3 times, 2 of which have come in the last 3 games. A third was 5 games ago. At Duke, he played 26 regular season games, topped 19 minutes once. His sophomore year in high school, he tore his right ACL and MCL. His left. In his senior year in high school, he tore his right. So part of his time at Duke was kind of rehabbing and getting better there. And then since their initial injuries, each knee has had a subsequent procedure. I assume that to be like just an arthroscopic or cleaning up of stuff.
Right. So the order on ownership on those guys is we have Miles Turner at 21.7%, Harry Giles at 18.9%, Daniel Tice at 16.4%, and apparently Derek Favors way the hell lower than he should be. What's going on here? Adams at 5%, if that holds, by the way, is a really nice matchup. Again, that he was not brilliant the first time these 2 teams met. That doesn't mean a ton for me. Almost had a low end double or something like that, but took 7-8 shots if memory serves. There's a giant ceiling there. Yeah, we have Favors at 4%. So if this is remotely accurate, Favors would be by far my favorite from among those guys. As far as a points per dollar stance between those guys, I think I actually have him best. I think point per dollar, I have him slightly behind Giles, with admittedly a lot of range. If you think I have Giles at 28 minutes, I like Giles at 28 minutes at 4,400 in that matchup, a little bit more than Favors at $4,900 in a matchup with the Lakers, points per dollar. But based on the ownership, my favorite of those guys is going to be Favors. The other 3, fairly close to interchangeable for me. At those ownerships, I would not have a strong takeaway.
All right, back to Portland, Boston. Jason Tatum does come with the 25% multiplier on SuperDraft. Nice. You also have Jaylen Brown at a 55% multiplier. Those are very, very nice. Brown is decent on DK and FanDuel. Tatum also solid. They both Brown does not see much of an uptick in fantasy production when Walker is out. Tatum sees about a 10 to 12% increase depending on your site scoring system.
All right. Yeah.
Brown would have the opportunity to fill some of those field goal attempts, which is helpful, and it's a good matchup and all of that. Where do you kind of put those guys in the picture? Where do you want to put CJ McCollum, who's finally appropriately priced, I think, on every site?
He's still a touch too cheap on DraftKings and still fairly too cheap on FanDuel. The matchup makes it around right because the Celtics will do a good job and generally do a good job against single ball dominant guards in this situation. I didn't expect 70 out of him last game, but he was $8,500 on DraftKings last game, and I went, that's still well too cheap in that situation without Lillard. So I'm kind of torn looking at this game. in a couple of ways. Again, a game that I'm not certain remains close, and that should be factored in. As far as the Celtics go, it changes a bit site by site. FanDuel Marcus Smart's my favorite by a pretty decent margin at $5,300, especially with their scoring system against a team that turns over the ball a lot. You can see, even if he doesn't go, make double-digit three-pointers and go crazy, Marcus Smart, you can still see him banging out a pretty sexy game at that price. So I'm a fan of Marcus Smart there. On DK, it is fairly narrow for me, but I would probably rank them Brown, Smart, Tatum, Hayward of the 4 non-Daniel Tice guys. Tice doesn't get almost any change in production, role, anything. It doesn't have a ton to do with anything. So the DK pricing, a little trickier. Tatum, the guy who I expect to continue to excel, who I particularly like in this matchup, it's just that the price is obviously no longer cheap by any means, and the game by no means certain to stay close. But that's my rough degree of appeal. I'll go through all the ownership in a second and take a look at it. But that's yeah.
Did you mention Melo? Sorry.
I didn't specifically refer to Melo or Whiteside or the rest of the Trailblazers. So, yeah. So McCollum, I'm kind of torn on. Like, he played the entire second half last game. That's a lot of time. He's been rough against the Celtics. Of the games he's played either this year or last year without Lillard, one was a rest game. The rest were the 5 games I think Damian Lillard missed over those couple of years. Hasn't been one against a team of this, if I'm remembering correctly. There's a Memphis game. There's a New Orleans game. I can't think of a game against a team similarly well equipped to stop him. Kemba being out is bad for him.
Smart and Brown be guarding him.
Yeah, he's just that's just a shit ton of time. But it's been a really difficult matchup for him individually and on a team level and systemically. So I'm torn. It's a really tough spot. I had him projected for 49 last time, which I think was higher than most people, and I still undershot it by 20 some odd. So I don't think it's a great matchup for him, but if he plays 43 minutes last game, I think it was, maybe, even more so I guess I am probably, it's going to be an ownership question. He's like 10% owned on DK, right?
Yeah.
People have run from the price, I presume?
Yes, would be my guess. On Super Draft, he was 87% owned in his last game. He had a 1.55 multiplier.
Too low.
He has a 1.5 multiplier tonight, but it's a much tougher matchup. If we think the chalk's going to go that route, there might be. I mean, how can you hate that kind of a multiplier on a guy in that situation?
I think my projection for him tonight is 44.5 fantasy points. So that would mean that on Super Draft, if I'm mathing that right, I'm projecting him for 66.75. That's a very nice projection. So if I think the ownership's going to be 80% again on Super Draft, then yes, I'd be inclined to run from that. But I don't know. Maybe it would be. You just dominated last game, and that modifier is still silly high. So it's an interesting question, but that's where the numbers would come out for me. Someone just said Eddie looks Portuguese. Oh, I don't even know what a Portuguese person looks like, other than the fact they put egg on everything. Like I walked into I remember first day in Portugal, I'm like, I'd like a cheeseburger, please. And it came, and there was a giant fried egg on it. And I didn't say like, I'd like an egg. Just apparently a cheeseburger comes with an egg. I like Christian Wood. He's the only offense Detroit has. So I got that one unintentionally wrong last time where I was saying, they didn't start him last game and they've been screwing with him all year and they really don't like him and they've given him less opportunities. And then everyone's like, no, they said they only didn't start him because of the Giannis thing, which they did say, which the coach said specifically. And then, they didn't start him again. So it was a competitive game. And so he stayed in and played 31 minutes. But my comment on Christian Wood is I'm concerned because he's obviously no longer cheap. But he can carry a giant load in the offense. But if that game doesn't stay close, I don't think he gets 31 minutes. I think he's probably going to come off the bench again. And in the event that game doesn't stay close, you're going to have Sekou and Thon and various other guys out there closing because they're doing their weird player development thing where they're developing a lot of kids and then a lot of 10-year veterans with no future in the league where you got to make sure Brandon Knight and Langston Galloway get 20 whatever minutes. I don't really know what the hell they're doing, but Matchup obviously not brilliant. Derrick Rose, they've specifically said, is on a minutes limit. So I've had a couple people tonight be like, how do you not like 5K Derrick Rose? He obviously, nothing is for certain with this team. He very unlikely to play 30-something minutes tonight. So let's put him at a hard cap of 28 minutes. Can he get there in 28 minutes? Sure, absolutely. It's Derrick Rose. And I might add, when you start someone next to Snell, Doumbia, Thon, that's not a lot of offensive firepower coming from anywhere else. So he could bang out 45% usage and be great. I have no issue with playing him, especially at the FanDuel price where I think he's on $4,900. But I do think minutes projection should, think I had him at 25.5 or 26 last I was futzing with it. So some real concern there for me.
All right. If you're ranking raw points, Giannis, Davis, Anthony Davis, or LeBron?
In that order.
All right. What do you have? Do you have Giannis for what? 64-ish? DK? Double-doubled in 90% of his games?
65.5. I like Giannis quite a bit here, and I think I end up liking Giannis less than many other people, and maybe even less than I should. I really like him in this spot. Again, the game should stay close, and they, with a decent sample and having watched a lot of Bucks Raptors basketball, the only person they had who did a reasonably quality job of stopping him was Kawhi Leonard. If you look at, I don't have time, but if a person were to peruse the statistics available on the interwebs, you would likely find that his recent games in which Kawhi Leonard was not a member of that team, including the last one this year where he dropped 70 some odd against the Raptors, I'm almost certain. I don't think that is an artifact of nothing. It's a very good defensive team. So in that whole thing I talked about a lot with how do I envision this game going, there's not going to be a lot of easy buckets. And when there's not a lot of easy buckets available for this team, they end up just going, well, we're going to give the ball to one of the best fantasy players on earth and one of the best basketball players on earth, go get points. And he's shown that he can do this in this matchup before. So there are, I've mentioned this a few times about this team. You will generally be a little more excited about Bledsoe and Middleton in easy matchups. And I think people sort of invert that sometimes where they're like, oh, there's no way anyone on the Hawks can stop Giannis. And it's like, yeah, but no one on the Hawks can stop Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton either. So they just still go out and do whatever the hell they're going to do. It's a little more likely that way. So in a difficult matchup, I might add the closest game line of the night by, I think, 6 or 7 points. I actually like Giannis a fair bit. So I have Giannis at 65-ish and Anthony Davis at, I think, 60, which is a pretty significant number, I have a feeling, relative to most people, and LeBron a few points behind that.
All right. Who says procrastination does not pay? Because I want my Fred Van Elite contest to fill, and I set it higher than normal. I'm dropping the link in chat, but here it is. You put it in there, you join. It's $1. Pays out top 20 players. It's 125 today. Top 3 are eligible to win 30 days of Awesemo premium content if you have an Awesemo avatar. But there you go. 20 spots left. Just $1. Jump on in there because I got to play the birthday boy himself.
So I talked about all those things. So Rozier, Monk, Turner, and Bradley are the chalk today. Got it. I'm not super inclined to play Rozier and Monk. I think Rozier and Monk are both very good plays at their prices. I'm a fan of playing one. I'm less a fan of playing two, for what it's worth. Turner.
Do you feel lost if you don't have either in your lineup?
Lost would be a strong take. Turner makes sense at 22% at only 5K, especially on DraftKings. At their ownerships, I would rather play favors. But the centers against the Charlotte, the thought process is correct there. So I have no issue with that being somewhat chalky. Bradley are the chalk today. Which Bradley is the chalk?
Avery?
Minutes are up. There's only one problem. It's Avery Bradley. But other than that, like that's like Svi Mikhailuk chalk nights. Like if Avery Bradley is going to be the chalk, and look, there he is, 20%. Yeah, I'm not playing 20% Avery Bradley. No thanks. I would have 0. Like play TJ McConnell, play any of the guys who cost that range and cost less money. It's just still Avery Bradley. It's the same thing. Like earlier today, we had higher ownership than that on Svi Mikhailuk. I would have been like, I just don't play that then. They're not players who are out there and massively going to take advantage of spots. Yes, Avery Bradley can make a 3-pointer, although that's been a movable feast over the course of his career. But you can look at they're trying to collapse on Anthony Davis. and he gets there. And again, there's someone who mentioned that the Raptors tend to collapse 4 onto Giannis. Well, they do and they don't. There's a drop positioning thing they do that ends up being mostly on the left end because that's usually where Giannis takes his first dribble there. But he's beat the crap out of him with that and gotten some decent assist totals. But he's also really good against them for rebounding upside, and both ends of the court. I really like the matchup for Giannis. So yeah, the Raptors, who are a really good defensive team, they've been underranked the entire year, do play Giannis fairly well. But I just think the matchup, everything he needs to do that, he will still get there. But that is an accurate observation.
All right, 10 minutes to go here. 10 spots in the Fred Van Elite contest. We are staying on until 7:30 to talk about Super Draft. Eddie, for FanDuel single entry, could you please rank Brogdon, Ball, and Bledsoe?
Assuming you have no other members of the Pacers, I would have Brogdon on top. If you have any other Pacers, it's Ball. I have all 3 fairly close, though. They're 61, 62, and 58, I think, and all project fairly similarly to me. But I would probably go with Broggy Pants. Disappointing recently. I do think some significant part of that is Oladipo's presence and what that's forced onto the lineup. So no other Pacers. Like if I'm playing Sabonis or TJ Warren or one of those guys, and TJ Warren, in the 3 previous meetings this year with Charlotte, had 2 monsters. I can't come up with a reason why, looking at the offense and the defense in question. But if you're game log watching, I guess that's relevant. He's still priced reasonable to move. Still no Oladipo gives him a bit of a cookie, so he should have gotten a mention previously. Don't mind Sabonis on FanDuel. DK price is a little high. I think I ranked him double Bs. Not going to be terrible, but paying off the upside at 9K, he's got to get on top of. Again, there's really not positions on DraftKings, so he's got to beat out Levine and McCollum and a number of other guys. I would like him a little less than that.
Zach or CJ McCollum on DK tournaments?
Well, let me look at what we think we're going to have him owned at. Well, sorry, I'm just taking into the...
While you're doing that, check out the Awesemo_COM pinned tweet. We are doing some fun here with our podcast channel. So here's the deal. If you sign up, rate, and review, so the sign up means subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, a review, which, hey, your review could be, hi, my username, my Awesemo username is, and then put your Awesemo username in there. We will contact one person each day for probably the next week or so to win 30 days of Awesemo premium content. There you go.
I would go with Zach LaVine. It's a matchup for both of them I'm very concerned about. We have LaVine projected to be lower owned. Again, when you get down to ownership of 10, 8, 7, 6%, it's not that relevant. And that's something that should be pointed out. Ownership isn't by percentage, it's by, sort of inverse differential. So the difference between 20% and 40% ownership is remarkably massive relative to the difference between 2 and 4% ownership. But that is close enough to a toss-up for me that I'll defer to the few percent ownership. And I would play Zach LaVine in that spot. Who it's again absolutely nothing, but laid down a monster against the Thunder earlier this year, 40-odd, 60, whatever the hell. And he's been playing 38, 39 minutes every game. I still am projected for 1 less than McCollum in this game, but he's been playing a butt ton of minutes, taking 20-plus shots. So I will hesitantly go with LaVine.
All right. I was reminded you can enter each day, and you can enter a promo on each platform. And we have multiple platforms there. Drawing a day. I'm going to drop the link in chat that gets you to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Breaker, the RSS feed, Castbox. It's a good time. I didn't know there were so many out there. Podbean, Beam. We have 7 minutes left. I've decided I'm not going to play that first game, so good times there. Guess I'm hoping the holidays and TJ McConnell's are not going to be awesome tonight.
Yeah, we have Monk up to 49%, Terry Rozier up to 46%.
I'm fading, baby. I got 0.
I don't. At that point, I might go with I do not want both. See how it goes. might have less. We have Danilo Gallinari at 31%. That's really not that bad. It is the matchup that looks really best for him. I like getting to him or Adams as the guys I think a little most likely. Again, this varies a lot. FanDuel, the prices on Chris Paul, SGA, those guys are a little more tolerable. DK, they're a little more specious. I definitely want to get to at least a member of the Thunder. But Gallo is the best one for me. Points per dollar. Again, looked just fine in the matchup previous this year, and you wouldn't be surprised as a team that's struggled to guard 4s and 5s the entire year. Still probably a little higher than I'd want, because again, I'm a bigger fan of pivoting to the Favors and Pascals and guys I like very slightly less mathematically and have 1/6 the ownership. But Eric Pascal up to 27%. Okay, well that changes everything. Jiminy Criminy. See, I thought people were going to be all.
Did we move that? Did we do that?
I think we would have done 3 of the 20% change, but I think Draymond being confirmed out did that. So good. People aren't that dumb. That's fine. He's still at $5,000 in a great matchup with Sacramento and Pascal gone. A couple people have mentioned JTA. Shout out for joining our premium Slack after the show. I think Sunday. I logged in when some news came out and literally put one piece of news in the Slack when I was out to dinner with my family and went, make sure you play some Juan Toscano Anderson. I expect him to be really good now after some news came out and somebody paid for 100 years of Awesemo premium with that one line. So that worked extremely well. Yeah, he's getting some attention. Got 28 minutes in that game, largely an artifact of a blowout with the increased minutes recently, but probably going to get 24, 6, 8 minutes again. $4,100 is not nearly as advantageous of a price, but I would have some exposure to it. I still don't think it will be owned as much as it should be, so I'd rather go there than Avery Bradley's fallen down to 18%. That's less silly. Harry Giles at 19. That feels fine. So ownership swapper, Monk 49. That's too high. Terry Rozier 46. That's too high. Danilo Gallinari 31. Little too high. Pascal 26. Yeah, okay. De'Aaron Fox 24. Okay. Miles Turner 21. Sure. Serge Ibaka. I didn't specifically talk about Ibaka. It is a really nice spot for Serge Ibaka. FanDuel $100 more. You get him power forward. DK 6,500. 21% is fine. Maybe even a little low. Ingram 20%. That might be actually low. I might want a little more than that. Harry Giles 19 is fine. Anthony Davis 18. Probably have more than that. He'd be my priority spend up. Bradley 18. I would try to look elsewhere, but that's if he was 10, I would be fine with 10. If he was 25, I would want 0. It's one of those things. LeBron at 18, yeah, I'm fine with it. Giannis at 17, that or a little bit more. Tice at 16, sure. Tatum at 15, sure. Whiteside at 14, that's fine. Great matchup for him. Not a matchup that really gets enhanced by the absence of Damian Lillard, but still 9,200, a little bit too cheap. Consistent role. That's about where the ownership should be. Brown at 14%, I'd want a little more. Van Vliet, I prefer Lowry. I would rather spend up for Lowry. I think this plays a little better into Lowry's hands.
It's not his birthday, though.
It is not his birthday. I hadn't thought of that, but I'm still going to go with Lowry even after that critical late breaking information. If you went back and I could get this one wrong. I hate saying shit like this when I could be wrong, but I have a fairly certain if you look at Kawhi-ness Raptors games against the Bucks, you're going to get very good Lowry games and not as good games out of Fred VanVleet that should
correlate
with Brogdon gone. So I'll still stick with Lowry and preferring him a little bit, but obviously the price there is fine, and 13% is not ridiculous. Wiggins at 12, probably try to have a little more. Smart at 12, probably try to have a little more. Sabonis 12 is fine. Brogdon 12 is fine. Middleton 11 is maybe even a little bit high because I'd try to be over on Giannis, and everyone can't get there in a tough matchup. Jokic 11, Melo 11, I didn't specifically talk about. Yeah, I like him. He does get a real boost without Lillard out there because, guy wants to chuck. TJ McConnell 11%. Screw that crap. Svi Mikhailiuk 10.5%. I would rather go with TJ McConnell. Svi, I really want the blowout to make that come in. Started the last game, played whatever teens minutes. Not super excited. Fine there. Barton should maybe be a little bit higher. Siakam I have behind Lowry, but 9% is fine. Aaron Holiday at 9%. I'm fine. Damian Lee at 8. I'm fine. Hayward at 8. Deserves to be at the bottom of the Celtics. Not having Kemba there has been a real thing for him. Gafford, sure. McDermott, I don't know. Doug McDermott is rarely the answer. Zach LaVine, fine. Yeah, so nothing, not a ton of input for me tonight. That's great.
All right, we've got about 90 seconds to go here, so we are still staying on till 7:30 to discuss Super Draft, which locks at 7:30. We're staying on for 30 minutes, but the Fred Van Elite Contest, did it fill? It's at 149. I'm gonna hit refresh here. It's at 149, so if somebody doesn't get in there, it's not gonna fill.
Someone join that contest, people. Don't be selfish.
It will not go off. So you guys had the shot at the link. Please jump in. We have 35 seconds left. And reminder, I will be playing Fred VanVleet on his birthday. And he is the only person I am playing. Oh, they're not the early game. They're the 7:30 game. This is my only lineup that has TJ McConnell. So I'm now putting it into another contest. So I have at least one TJ McConnell lineup. All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would not go to the risks if you had no TJ McConnell lineups. But I'm glad you're inspired to get a little bit. I like him at 3,200.
Well, I don't have any Aaron Holiday, and I don't have any of the Charlotte players, so just needed one.
I got no extra news.
All right. Well, we'll wait for a moment here while
is RG good value? I do not mind RG Diacono sitting around the minimum. He's not good when he's like the point guard, which happened a number of times. He was randomly we had a great, those of you who've been following the Old Man Show for a few years now, we had a couple great RG Diacono games last year where I did a deep breakdown of him against the Spurs. I'm almost sure, and actually spent a lot of while watching the video. I'm like, I feel weird saying this, but I think we're going to get a really big Archie Diacono game here. And it was trust me, when you get Archie Diacono right, you remember that one. So that happened once. But yeah, playing at small forward and things are going to have to really break a certain way for you. But he won't be as bad as he's been. He'll be a little bit better.
All right, let's see. 2,000 people left. Hang in there. Hey, hit that like button. We did work hard today. A lot of stuff going on. And, of course, we've got the grind doubling down here with baseball appearing on March 26th. There is some spring training baseball. Vaya con Dios, mis amigos, if you're going to be doing spring training baseball. But good luck. We've seen games with, basically no scoring. And today there was a bunch of double-digit scoring. I wouldn't want to play spring training baseball, though I have in the past. All right, Eddie, let's see if this little...
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Gets to render. I say rendering because it's fun to say, but
let me clear my throat.
All right, so we have on Super Draft. There are 1,000 spots.
What is with that Super Draft thing?
That's how Lofty says it, and
that's how Lofty says it.
Well, he was the guy that said at Yahoo where you can become a baller. So he's coming up with catchphrases on the DFS strategy show. In addition to
get him into pro wrestling.
Yes. So this one is Super Draft, and I don't do it very well. Josh does it the best, I think, but it is Lofty's.
I will have to. Money will have to teach me.
Yes. Let me see.
Bismarcky at Eddie. No, that's not Bismarcky. Actually, Emac asked me the same question. That's DJ Cool.
But I did not answer Bismarcky.
No, someone in chat said Bismarcky, Eddie, and I'm like, that is not
no,
Bismarcky.
That's you got what I need. Is
and several other don't limit Bismarcky to just the one track, but no, that's DJ Cool out of Washington D.C.
Yeah,
I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's not Philly. I think it's Washington.
Not DJ Quick. Striper. What do you do? X's and O's. That was Striper.
I like L King's X's and O's. That's a good song. I karaoke that one sometimes.
I am going to the contest. I'm hitting the view live. We are going to, holy cow. They had a Thunderdome today for $500,000.
So 1,000 entries, 5,300.
1,000 entries, 5,300. They also had the Sub-Zero Slam, $500,000, 5,555 entries, $100 a piece. We're going to the Excellent Eights, which would be $8. 450,000. Can you guess how many points or how many ducats go to first there?
100,000.
Amazing. Not without a clue. We did not talk about this beforehand, folks.
Anywhere between 300 and 600, they're giving 100 to first.
All right. Who does number 2 work for? Who do you think is the most popular player tonight?
Malik Monk. We only have one game, so Malik Monk is the highest owned player next.
You are correct. Who is number 2?
Terry Rozier.
Would you like to guess who is number 3?
Miles Turner. I'm pretty sure on those three. Now
All right.
it's a little
now apportion some of the ownership on those three. See, I'm not going to let you bracket it. There you go.
Oh, okay. That'd be better if there were more games on this slate.
I know, because you've looked at this and we talked about it so many times.
But when like 3 of the 4 games are going, and I know the first one, I can start to reverse sort out the others. That's very clever.
Yeah. I'm just saying what's out there. Be careful. The weekend's not that far away, Eddie.
Monk, I'll say 45. I think we were maybe overstripping it a little bit.
Okay.
But 45, I'll say on Malik Monk.
All right. 41-6.
Okay. Rozier is second. That should have fallen off him. 41-6. Interesting. I would think Rozier would have fallen off even further then. So I'll say 36.
32.1.
Okay. I actually don't really mind the Rozier ownership. 40 whatever on Monk is still too high, but then Miles Turner, we added 22 or something like that. Feels about right. I'll say 21.
25.7. Let's see. How do you feel? And then we'll get to Super Draft here. How do you feel? Just good or bad? Aaron Holiday at 14.
Fine.
TJ Warren at 11.
Yeah, that's. I think we got that on the nose in a related story. Nice job, ownership.
PJ at 9.
Yeah, I like it. PJ Tucker. Oh, PJ Washington.
PJ Washington.
I mean, I would want less than 9, but it's we're talking about 9. There's very few numbers that are going to come up here. Like I'd want more Brogdon than whatever he's going to hit at, because we haven't said that name yet.
8. He's next.
Okay.
Let's see. Zeller's at 8. McConnell.
Wait, which TJ did we get? You got to remember
Warren.
This is.
Oh yeah. TJ Warren. TJ Warren. I'm sorry.
You have to remember, every TJ in the NBA plays for this team.
All three of them play here.
There was a year where they collected all the TJs and the Pistons collected all the Reggies. They had them all for a while. They each collected them.
Oh, that's funny. I knew the TJs.
Then they distributed them to the. If you love something, you have to let it go. So they love Reggies, but they have to let them go. But there was a while that all the Reggies were on the Pistons and all the TJs were on the Pacers.
All right, so McConnell 7.2,
and it's also like everyone with a third suffix in their name was on the Kings.
Cody Martin 2.5, Caleb Martin 0.7.
You don't want Caleb Martin. You want Cody Martin. You want maybe Jalen McDaniels. That wasn't crazy. I ranked those 2 guys.
1.4.
Okay, that's man.
Victor Oladipo 0.01, Jeremy Lamb 0.01. Brian Bowen. That name does sound familiar.
Brian Bowen?
Yeah, the second.
Yeah, I don't know if he's active. I suspect he is. He would be playing 10 minutes at the 2 in theory for the Pacers. I think he's active. He's on the Pacers. He is.
And the only reason I say that's familiar is because it's Brian Bowen the second. I've had to deal with VLOOKUP issues. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then Joe Cheeley. Sorry, don't know who Joe Cheeley is.
Yep. He's on the Hornets. He's a guy in the Hornets. Even Summer League didn't get a whole lot of run. Bowen did. He had a couple good games.
In our premium chat, they say half that TJ McConnell ownership could be from Adam.
Was he?
Apparently, he must have been very high on him. I didn't have a chance to catch.
That makes me feel good. If Adam, that makes me confident. Because I thought he would be reduced lower by not playing in the second half. Wait, which one was he 11% or was that TJ Warren?
Warren was 11, McConnell was 8, and I just closed the file. So because we're going to Super Draft.
That's very good at 8%. I feel pretty good about 11. Would have been fine.
Is Bacon in the G League?
I do not believe so. I'm not sure, but I believe he is DNP'd. I believe he's in DNPL. But I will check and see if it is listed on the official injury report, because I have that page open and I have returned to my computer. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. They did not play themselves. I'm sorry, they played themselves. The 3 players on the injury report listed with the G League are Ray Spalding, Kobe Simmons, and Dwayne Bacon.
All right. Bacon is not making that lineup better. Ba-dum-bum.
Someone just sent me a message saying that they've been to Portugal and they do put egg on everything and they don't cook their bacon enough. So that's a nice segue.
Ooh, all right.
All right, I'm loading up Super Draft. Let's see what we've got.
Number one play on the day currently for Super Draft per the
CJ
Awesemo projections,
CJ
which are not free today.
Oh, okay.
Not free. The Awesemo rankings are free. The projections are not. You get the CJ McCollum coming in at 71. He has a 1.5 multiplier. Andrew Wiggins has a 1.5 multiplier. He is coming in second, but he is 8 points behind. So CJ is dramatically out in front. Number 3 is Hassan Whiteside, 1.2. How do you feel about
number 60? Yeah, that's not
his
bad.
number gets him to 60? Yep. So if you were doing this, the guys I wrote up today were Jason Tatum, the 25% multiplier. He comes in at 55, and then Jaylen Brown comes in with the 55 multiplier at 57. So those were the two guys I liked.
Yeah, I like having one of them.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to build a lineup with two
both.
Celtics who I need to sort of overperform. So if you have them projected at a modified 55 and 57, probably won't frequently get there. So you need one or both to overperform by at least a little bit. So I'd be a fan of getting to one of them. I think that's a good idea. You have to expect someone on the Celtics team to be pretty good. This is a very good matchup with a very dicey Portland team.
All right. So for Super Draft, right now they have 1,182 out of 2,175 filled. So we are at about 1,000 short. There are 20 minutes left. What are the fun things about Super Draft? Well, we don't have to worry about pesky salaries. We talk about the multiplier, so you can play everybody you want. So if you wanted to have a lineup tonight that had, say, such luminaries as Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, maybe you wanted to put in Zach LaVine and maybe round it out with Nikola Jokic, you could. And you couldn't do that on most of the other sites. But these guys, their multipliers are basically 1.
Oh, you get a nickel with Anthony Davis. You get no nickel with LeBron James.
Yes, you get a nickel with Jokic as well. Very small, but the one thing you do want to remember that's not just 0.05, because 0.05 seems so tiny. It's actually 5%. So I like to think of this as 5%, 25%, 55%. Helps me calibrate a little bit better when I'm looking at these things. I think because percentages, Eddie, often help measure relations between two things, and that's how I like to do it.
I think actually that's all they do.
Yes.
I think not often, but all percentages do is relate the
sometimes they play
the magnitude.
Damn it, no, we play the percentages.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all they do. Okay.
Yeah. They relate,
3 guards, 3 forwards, and a center. So that is very helpful. The scoring, well, it's the best of all worlds. 3 for blocks and steals, half-point bonus for 3-pointers, double-double and triple-double bonuses. The other's kind of about what you're used to, -1 for turnovers.
Oh, great. I want to interrupt to say, great question. Someone says that Wiggins has a leg injury. He did get injured in the last game as reported. I thought he was going to be questionable. He did not show up on the injury report at 1:30. He did not show up on the injury report. I'm going to double check at 5:30. Let me super confirm that second one, because I reviewed the late injury report. I think I would have noticed that, but yeah, he's not on either injury report. So apparently he is very TJ McConnelling this, and that I really thought he'd come in with a designation. He has no such designation, but it's very good to point out that he may not be 100%. Which, by the way, in a related story, Saturday was a great day. Saturday was an excellent day. Called 5 long shots and 4 of them hit. It was a very good day. Sunday did not work out that well. Devoted specifically to my love for what was going to be a 10% owned LaMarcus Aldridge in what has historically been an excellent matchup for him.
Too soon.
Yeah, well, guess what? He's out tomorrow with a shoulder injury. So
that nobody really talked about.
Yeah, no one said a word or did a thing. But I was watching that, and I tweeted a picture of me poking him with a stick going, do something. He looked incredibly disengaged, didn't take shots he would normally take. Yeah, he's got a shoulder that isn't working right. So don't get me wrong, it still sucks, but I couldn't have known that. So
no, that's all right. Well, and so here's the interesting thing. Yesterday I got gobsmacked. There was a little bit of a optimizer issue out there, so I had to go with my first run lineups, which, okay, that's fine. I missed the Westbrook injury news because I was having dinner with my wife, so all of a sudden I'm riding with 15% Westbrook. I had 2 lineups, so I ran 100 lineups. I put 2 of them, one each, in a winner take all, and one of them hit for $50. That's just crazy. You run hot. I did the same thing in golf. Played 70 lineups, put one of those lineups in a winner take all, won $50. I won 2 winner take alls for $50 in XFL. So all of a sudden, my $5 turned into $200, even though the rest of my lineups were kind of crappy. Hi, it's a tournament to play. So I'm running on the wonderful side of variance going my way.
That's how it's going to go again.
Yeah, so you can't beat yourself up as long as you have some live lineups. If one, Josh says it best, if one of these can break away, you can get there.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Any sort of gambling, and that's what this is an emotional thing. It's hard to divest emotion from the experience, but there is a real difference between playing well and winning, and just you will win times where you completely screw up, and you will lose times you play it correctly. And again, we were talking about Adam this week made a couple $100,000 after being on a cold streak for a while. He's the same guy, and it always cracks me up when people are like, "Oh, this guy's on a hot streak. He's the best. I'll listen to him now." And so, it'll even applies to touting. Like, he'll have a great show on Tuesday, and people will be like, "Oh, you're amazing. I'm going to play whoever you say on Wednesday." And the same guy I was on Monday. It just happened to variance my way on Tuesday, or your way, or anyone's way. So, it is hard, but it's amazing how many people, really good people, still don't really get those two things twisted. I had a Twitter thread this week where I said why I thought Trae Young was overrated. And I had 50 people tell me what an idiot I was. And exactly one person gave a reason. A lot of people tried to give a reason. They're like, "What are you talking about? He's really good." And I'm like, what?
That's quantifiable.
I'm not saying he's not really good. I'm saying the public zeitgeist perception of exactly how good he is greater than his actual ability relative to helping a team win basketball games right now. Discuss. And I had 10 tweets listing statistical reasons why. And they're like, "Oh, you're so dumb. He's so good." I'm like, okay, can't beat that up. The example I gave was someone said Kobe Bryant was the best basketball player ever. That would be overrating Kobe Bryant. Kobe was still absolutely magical. That's just overrating him slightly. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Super Draft up to 1,300. So 800 spots left, 13 minutes to go. A reminder, they do have late swap as well as CSV upload. And you actually can, with a little help, a little whisper, maybe a helping hand, you can do CSV late swap. But that is supported by Fantasy Cruncher as well. I'm not sure what other optimizers do have that, but I do know Fantasy Cruncher does.
We're 4 minutes in, and Monk and Rozier haven't broken the slate yet, and people are complaining in chat already. Miles Bridges, that was my next guy. 7 points and a rebound. You go, Miles Bridges.
All right, let's play some late slate contests here. I'm just keeping an eye out here. Let's see, Drew or Wiggins? Let's go regular. I don't think they're referring to the old fantasy.
I think I slightly prefer playing. I slightly prefer playing Wiggins because I have some weird narrative thing with Lonzo and Ingram, which it'd be very close for me, and I'm actually tie-breaking basically on the fact that those guys really went after the Lakers in the other game in Los Angeles, and Lonzo only played one of the 2 previous matchups, but Ingram has been more involved, hired to enough that so I have those guys basically even. I'll choose against Drew for that reason. But
would you want to be above the field or below the field on Mr. Hassan Whiteside? I think we had him at 15%.
I imagine above the field because, I'd want to get to 15 or 20, I think, on Derek Favors as one of the pieces I'd want to be well over the field on, and that would limit me a little bit. But that number feels about right. I don't have a strong take there.
You were mentioning you did not want to play on Super Draft Tatum, and you would prefer not to play Tatum and Brown together. Would you do that for any of the other sites? strong enough to do a rule, or do you think by just kind of having
it's not strong enough to do a rule for me? I think a rule not having again the pricing site by site is pretty notably different. Like they are all towards the top of their viable price range on DraftKings. I don't want more than 2 of Smart, Tatum, Brown, Hayward.
Okay.
I think that's fine to set a rule on. I think the ideal number is like 1.3, as in I think it's to some degree significantly closer to 1 than 2, but I think 2 is probably better than 0. It's difficult to imagine that the Kembalist Celtics don't have at least a guy do extremely well on a 7-game slate against a really anemic Portland team. So generally I'm trying to get 1. 1 is the number I feel the best about. You know, if the second one is Tice, I really don't mind that much. You know, and which 2 would matter a lot for me. Like I really don't want Brown, Hayward. I can get away with, you know, Smart Tatum feels okay. Smart Tice feels okay. So it's going to depend on a lot of variables. But
how do you feel about Zion, particularly on SuperDraft with that 155 multiplier?
You know, that's still really high. I imagine it'll be fairly popular, but that's still really good. I would have to imagine just raw projection. If you look at like Alex's weighted or
he's
something.
top 6, I think, for us.
Yeah, I was going to say I would think he's top 5 or top 6. So that's still a very, very good price. Do I like Levine at 1.3x? I do. I imagine he's also top 6, top 7.
How do you feel about Jrue Holiday going against the Lakers?
Again, as I alluded to a second ago, I don't have an issue with it specifically. I mean, it's a bad matchup for everyone on the team. The price is normalized and towards about the right point at a team that's, I mean, Kenrich Williams is still out, but other than that, of the relevant players on that team, they're entirely healthy. So spending in the 8s for 7,900 for Jrue Holiday in a tough matchup is not a great deal. There are other guys who are priced better. Now, it's Jrue Holiday who's capable of getting, you know, triple doubles on the right day. Not likely against the Lakers, but double doubles can end up being dimes. I would have a rule with no him and Lonzo because I really want him to get some of the dimes, and he does pick up tons of defensive stats. So I'm fine getting to some Jrue Holiday, but you know, I had him 3rd on DraftKings and I think 3rd on FanDuel. So I'm fine with like 10% exposure. I don't have a strong take, but he's priced roughly appropriately in a difficult matchup. So yeah. And again, it is a thing for me where I think Ingram, Hart, Lonzo have maybe a little bit of antipathy towards the Lakers.
Yeah, that it feels like that makes sense.
What about Ibaka at 1.55? I imagine he's top 7 ranked too.
Let me go back to that page. Ibaka is, he's 8th.
8th, sorry. But
we're splitting hairs at that point. He's less 4 through 8 are half a point, or pardon me, 1 point separating.
Tatum 1.25 or Zion 1.55. I would expect Zion to be higher owned. Again, I really need someone at either SuperDraft or Awesemo has this data and can send me, like, for the largest tournament on the site, the ownership over the last week. I will study that crap so I can start to recognize the trends, because all this is going to come down to ownership, and I just don't have a feel yet. I obviously can't play there, so I'm having trouble quantifying that. But I believe Zion will be higher owned than Tatum, and if I had to pick one of them, presuming I don't have another spend-up Celtic, I would probably play Tatum. I mean, Tatum just had whatever 60, 70 fantasy points against the Lakers. He damn well can sure do it against the Trailblazers. So
premium chat question came in. I'm sure it's on everybody's mind. How much CJ McCollum is too much? So I will say again, on Sunday, he was 87.5% owned in this contest.
We have him as the highest projected guy with like a modified 70 something, I presume.
Yes.
No amount is too much. So the field is going to be, I will ballpark with the tougher matchup, and the modifier is, I think, different by 0.05 or something. I'm guessing his ownership will fall down to, I will guess, and we can find this out at Super Draft Lock. So this is going to be good. I will guess, and I don't feel comfortable guessing at Super Draft ownership, but I will guess he's 73% owned.
Okay.
I have no issue with you playing 0, 73, or 100% CJ McCollum. I personally, it's difficult for me to say because having not built lineups and played on the site extensively every day, I would react to how I thought the ownership was going to go on other guys and whether or not I felt I had enough ownership edge in my other selections and how top heavy the tournaments pay and a couple things that I don't have the best grasp on ahead of time. But I don't have a great feel for what the appropriate ownership on him is. It's a really tough matchup. They could get blown out. He's really struggled with the Celtics, and they have a number of guys who can make his life very difficult. He could very easily get a, unmodified 36, which would expand into a modified 53 or something. I think you said he was 1.7 or what have you, and not be good enough to make your top line. And if you played 0, you're in a great spot. He is the highest projected player on the site. So how much is too much? 100% is not too much. There are a lot of ways to play Super Draft. It's one of the reasons I like it. For really casual players, it's really hard to pick dead players. You can just pick anyone who's playing. Be like, I like these guys tonight to do well in their matchups. That's probably a pretty viable strategy.
You could also just cross them off.
Sure. The guys who are projected to score the most, because again, in this industry, some form of very accurate, usually projections are available. It's not real hard to take that and add a field for multiplier, find the product, and pick the highest 7 guys on that list. So the guys who you think, like, I really think Gordon Hayward is going to do very well. He won't be very popular tonight. He hasn't done the best with Kemba. His modifier isn't quite good enough, so there won't be a ton of Gordon Hayward out there. But because of that, you get him at 3% instead of 73% CJ McCollum or some of the other guys who are going to be really popular. So I like it in that you can approach it from almost any angle. But how much CJ McCollum is too much, I would not have an issue with someone saying I just played 100% CJ McCollum. He's been generally very, very good without Lillard. That's very true. The minutes could be massive. So I don't have a great answer, but that's my thought process for not having a great answer.
All right, let's see. Let's go do my little crunch here. 3 unique, because why not?
Has 4 blocks. That's something he can do. He's a season-long DFS. He's a block monster. So that's, if you need blocks, he's a guy you trade for.
Oof, Kyle Kuzma coming in quite a few lineups here. That doesn't feel great. He has 44 on DK. We're projecting him for low 20s, it looks like.
Minutes?
No, points.
Yeah. I think I had him at 23 minutes and 20 and a half fantasy points or something.
Oh, no wonder he came in. I hit the lock button on him. I only wanted 10%. I just ran 100 lineups. I'm like, how the F is he in 100 lineups? There we go.
Turner stocks. I cracked some people are like, Turner was the most obvious play. You got to say that at 659. Because it doesn't mean anything when the guy is doing well. Like there's brilliant, Giannis was the most obvious play last night, and he had a bad game. That's how that's gonna go.
What did you say your projection for Giannis was tonight?
I will double check it, but I
thought you said 65, but
I had him at 65.5. I really liked him on DraftKings.
I'm guess I'm gonna really like him too, because I'm putting that in as my default. Running my lineups. I set it as
Alex has 59 or 60.
Yeah. Alex also had 34 or was 36 for LaMarcus Aldridge. So.
He was a hell of a lot closer than me. He was off by 20. I was off by 28 or whatever. Like he was hurt. I mean, no. I know, but I know Alex watches a lot of our shows too. So I assume he's watching. Alex is one of the smartest, if not the smartest guys to do this. Generally, when I disagree with him, I presume he's correct and I am not, because he comes at it from a more scientific way. I'm a guy sitting here. I watch a lot of basketball. I talk about a lot of basketball. I think I'm smart too, but
would you play any Nerlens Noel?
His methodology is going to be, as a scientist and when necessary, I hope a reasonably savvy computer user, his methodology is going to be more solid over the long run. If I had anything to say for myself in that comparison, it would be that my insight is more unique for that reason, that I attempt to move as far away from that as I can to be a complement to it. But anyway. Would I have any Nerlens Noel? Was that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great matchup. They could absolutely smash the living piss out of the Bulls. You could get some of the blowout run, although that hasn't happened a lot recently. But there isn't a lot of good 32. I think he's $3,300 value on DK. I don't think you could get there on Super Draft even at a 2.0. But yeah, I mean, he just gets lots of steals and blocks. It's generally for that reason someone I would rather play on FanDuel if possible.
Right.
But yeah, there's on a slate of this size with the value being as crappy as it was. I mean, if you look at, I mean, that's the reason for a while we had crazy Zvi Mikhailuk ownership during the middle of the day. There's a guy who's in a team where the minutes are all over the place and is not good when they're all like, you know, like there was no decent value. Miles Turner, 20 points so far in the first quarter. He's done that the whole time. I would have a projection for him of probably still barely under 40 for the game, but it's a really nice matchup.
All
What's
right.
the score in the game would be my
Super
concern.
Draft is going to go off about 90% full. There are 35 seconds
All right.
left.
No rake is much better than some rake. Get yourself into some Super Draft.
No, and that's the reminder for everybody. It's that helps out tremendously. We've talked about it, that it's creeping up most everywhere. And while this is not overlay, there's room in the contest, which is another way of saying that. But you basically are going to play. Let's see, they're going to get close to raking it.
Oh, TJ McConnell is on the board with a turnover.
Oh. Hey, Aaron Holiday did something similar when we had this conversation that was 0 for 4. And what was that, you and I on the show when that happened?
It's Sunday.
Yeah. All right. Looks like it.
Miles Turner. Let's get the 5x5 out of Miles Turner. They're only up by 7 too, so maybe they keep the game close.
Yeah. Looks like it went off about 10%.
Yeah. Bridges, Brogdon, Warren, Turner, Cody Martin. By the way, Cody Martin with 11. Let's go.
There you are. All right. For the 750 still there, hit us with a like. Love to see that hit 500 before we get on out of here. And also like, rate, and review and subscribe Awesemo on iTunes. If you do this and you make, you like, that's easy. There's a variety of ways, but you can leave a 5-star recommendation. And in the review, tell us your Awesemo username, because we're doing a drawing from all of the different platforms we are on for podcasts each of the next few days. And the winner, because we want to know how to notify you, the winner will get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. So there we go. It's a pretty good deal. We're going to do this all over again tomorrow, Eddie. It's going to be the DFS strategy show starting off at 9:30 in the morning. You will get the deeper dive, live before lock, all sorts of goodness. Let's take a quic look.
Is it you and me again? Are we doing a 4 and 5, you and I?
Oh, I forgot to mention that. No. I believe it is. I think it's Josh.
I would think so. I tend to do Wednesdays. I had no reason to think not. But you said we're going to do this again tomorrow.
Well, we, as in the collective Awesemo team, because you and I are not doing the daily strategy show and the deeper dive and live before lock.
That's a good point.
So it will be you and Josh. There will be a 30-minute boost there for Super Draft. You'll get Laffy and Adam on the deep dive, of course. And Laffy and Sal will be kicking things off at 9:30 tomorrow morning with the DFS strategy show. And then you will get Strafford, and I don't remember who does Tuesday nights, but you will get or the Tuesday podcast, but that will be posted in a couple hours here. We had Jay Walker did a podcast for those of you who are Jay Walker fans, he's around. We had a little fun. We did that on Sunday night for Monday's podcast. So keep checking that out, because again, we're doing a lot of stuff with the podcasts. So you want to read those little contests on how you can win 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. And of course, if you want the easiest way to do it, you can just use the promo code live before lock, all one word, and get 50% off any 1 week package. With that, gamers, you can at Fast Eddie Fair. I am at EMACDFS on Twitter. And again, it is Awesemo _COM. With that, gamers, good luck.